Fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking,
this is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
down to earth,
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
and most importantly, honest,
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
The People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Good morning. The blame game.
The government says smuggling gangs are responsible for deaths in the English Channel.
3 migrants died off the coast of France on Sunday morning after a boat of 60 people capsized. And America is in mourning as former US President Jimmy Carter has died at the age of 100.
Joe Biden praised the one-term 39th president as a man of principle, faith and humility, while Donald Trump stated Americans owe him a debt of gratitude.
King Charles and Prime Minister Keir Starmer have paid tribute to those who lost their lives in a plane crash in South Korea on Sunday.
Tours, trials and triumphs, how Harry and Meghan fared in 2024.
Good morning. Liverpool extend their lead at the top of the Premier League with an irresistible performance at the London Stadium in their 5-0 demolition of West Ham United. And there was a big upset at the PDC World Darts Championship. Reigning champion Luke Humphries is out at the Ali Pali.
Low pressure dominating the end of 2024 and taking us into the new year as well. Met Office warnings out for wind, rain and snow. Let's find out all the details coming up in the programme soon.
It's just gone 6 o'clock. I'm Adam Cherry.
I'm Nana Acquia and this is GB News Breakfast. Good morning. French authorities confirmed 3 deaths yesterday morning following an incident off the coast at Sangate near Calais, in which 45 people were rescued after struggling to board a small boat bound for the UK.
Yeah, Border Security and Asylum Minister Dame Angela Eagles said that ruthless criminals were responsible for overloading the boats.
But who is really to blame?
Well, we're joined by Deputy Editor of Spiked, Fraser Myers. Are the smuggling gangs to blame, or should they have been stopped by now, Fraser? What do you reckon?
Well, it's the Starmer's policy is to smash the gangs, but it looks like the gangs are smashing Starmer, unfortunately. I think the issue here is that we all want to see enforcement of the law. We all want to see these criminal gangs brought to boot, but there doesn't seem to be any other policy on the other end that is essentially reducing the incentive to come over. I think, unfortunately, tragedies like this happen because people know that if they come to Britain, there is next to zero chance of them being deported. Even if they have an asylum claim denied, they will probably just be absorbed into the black economy. Even if they commit sometimes horrendous crimes, they might not be deported, whether on human rights grounds, under our own laws, or due to the ECHR. So the incentives there are so strong for people to come over illegally. There is essentially there's nothing saying you can't come. And that's something that Keir Starmer and the Labour Party are not really interested in dealing with, because they see, and it's true, many people are genuine asylum seekers and refugees, but 100% of them are not, and essentially they treat everyone as that, and they see this dichotomy between, well, it's just the evil smuggling gangs, exploiting people, exploiting helpless people. That may be true in a lot of circumstances, but it's not true in all circumstances, and until that distinction is made more clear.
Do you know, I'm absolutely sick of this. I don't know why they haven't got a handle on it. It seems pretty obvious to me. Those boats would be, if I were in charge, those boats would be stopped. If it would require me to get out the ECHR, then I would do that if it meant that would happen, because people are dying. So what is the solution? Would Rwanda have worked? And should we be leaving the ECHR to make this...
I think we will have to leave. I think we do have to leave the ECHR. I think we've got to the situation where, I mean, there's been some incredibly bizarre cases this year where even people who, any sane person would say they should be deported. So recently there was a Congolese man who sexually assaulted his own stepdaughter, but was allowed to stay in the UK on the grounds of his right to a family life. Now, this is the same family that he is, terrorising, and he has to stay in the UK on those grounds. So, being in the ECHR, the years of case law creates all these kinds of absurdities that we can't seem to wriggle out of. So that's a big factor. Rwanda, I'm not so sure about, but we just need to enforce the law as it is. Essentially, if you come here, you will easily be able to slip away. There are so many cases where people have been told you're not allowed to stay, but they're not actually deported. So there's there's nothing to disincentivize people from coming.
Fraser, you must be pretty pessimistic then, because the odds of us leaving the ECHR are next to zero under this government, or indeed even with the Conservatives under Kemi Badenoch. So, in your view, we're doomed, aren't we?
A little bit. I mean, it's also possible to ignore the ECHR, which is what France does quite a lot. They will make their own risk assessment and decide that someone is too dangerous and then deport them anyway, which seems sensible. That's not going to happen under Keir Starmer, because he seems to have, one of the few consistent principles, if you can call it that he holds, is that he believes in international law, international courts, human rights law above everything else. Maybe that might be different under, a Conservative administration, or, perhaps a different flavour of government that we might not expect. But yes, I think under Labour, I don't have any hope of things changing.
At what point will somebody take this seriously? Because I'm looking at it, I'm thinking, this has to stop. Even the French must be looking at it and thinking, because there was a moment when we left the EU, that there was, let them come across, that attitude was definitely there. Now it's really affecting the French, because people are coming to France specifically to now cross the Channel. Why don't they do something serious about it at their end?
Well, I think it's hard to say how much or little they're doing, but I think but you're right, we do have to take this seriously. We can't just... It's really actually quite scary how, every other week it seems like a group of people die. It sort of falls out of the news cycle. These are 3 human beings that perished in the Channel. There have people been crossing on Christmas Day. This really is something that governments do have to get a grip with. But I feel like the political class doesn't really care about enforcing our borders. In fact, they probably think it's dirty to enforce Britain's borders. The outgoing head of the border force a few years ago says, I bloody hate borders. So when you have that in the British political class, I think in the European political class as well, it's going to be very difficult to get a grip on this problem. It's not at the top of their inbox.
Labour would say, the government will say, that they do take it very seriously. Admittedly, it wasn't one of their milestones or missions, whatever it was, in his reset speech, Prime Minister's reset speech a couple of months ago. But they do say that smashing the gangs, controlling migration is very important, and they're essentially blaming the previous government for not taking it seriously enough. So at least in rhetoric, you'd have to say that they are taking it seriously.
I think certainly yes, and Keir Starmer has come out with, in terms of rhetoric, and Keir Starmer also gave that speech talking about the explosion in legal migration as well. But is that really part of Labour's underlying philosophy? I think many people, certainly party members, a lot of the MPs, actually think that this is really about, the answer to this is to have more safe routes, things like that. That's not necessarily a bad thing. You know, people can be generous to genuine asylum seekers. We have been in this country. Think about all the hundreds of thousands of people who've come from Hong Kong, escaping oppression from the CCP or from Ukraine during the war. People understand that it's the right thing to do to give asylum to people in those circumstances. But I think Labour seems to see everyone automatically as deserving of a right to come here. And I think that's sort of baked into how they see the world, even if Keir Starmer gives a speech decrying the Tories being an open borders party.
So what do you think it should be the first thing that a Labour government could do? Because smashing the gangs, the rhetoric, as Adam says, they've had a lot of rhetoric. They've all been talking, you know, they're all talking a load of nonsense. Nobody's actually done anything. I actually miss Rishi Sunak now. Does anybody miss Rishi Sunak?
Yeah.
But, you know, the question is, you know, what should be the first move for this government to try and fix the situation, in your view?
I think you have to send a message to people who are coming over illegally, especially if they don't have a right to, you know, they don't have two legs to stand on in terms of their right to asylum, that, you know, they will be sent home. And that currently isn't the case. I mean, there's barely, you know, I suppose this is a problem more broadly. There's no enforcement of most laws at the moment in the UK, you know, let alone immigration law. I think that has to be the message. People need to know. I suppose that was the point of...
Well, there's an enforcement of human rights.
There is
That's the only one that...
Well, yeah, exactly. Unfortunately, yes. So that would mean, you know, looking at, not necessarily repealing the entire Human Rights Act, but looking at what aspects of this are getting in the way of a sensible migration policy. You know, what can we do about the ECHR? Which rulings can we ignore, even before we get into the tricky thing of actually leaving it?
The ECHR question looms over Westminster, doesn't it? How do you see this playing out in SW1? So you've got half the Tories saying you should leave the ECHR, the other half of which Kevin Badenoch leads, really saying no, we shouldn't. Then you've got Reform snapping at the heels. Is this just going to create more chaos over the next 4 years, 4.5 years?
I think, yeah, there's always the potential for even though there's only 120 Tories, they could still split and still argue over this. I think Kemi Badenoch is more open to it, but I think she just doesn't want to be committed on any position at the moment. I think they have about one policy at the moment, which is like backing the farmers. But I don't think it will be possible. I think if the Conservatives don't back leaving the ECHR, then they've left such a big flank open for Reform to take over, you know, to take that position. I think it is untenable, actually, for the Conservative Party to say that this doesn't matter, that the ECHR is irrelevant. I think that will be exposed in the debate. I think they will either have to come towards that position, perhaps offer a referendum or something like that. Heaven forbid. That would be great fun. And obviously people will vote to leave because the arguments are fairly simple. But yeah, I think they'll have to come to that position. Labour, of course, will back the ECHR, and I think it will... If we have that national debate, I think that will really hurt them, because the position is untenable now. ECHR, good idea, you know, after the Second World War, but the case law has changed things so much that it has essentially created its own web of laws that have become impossible for a country like us, a country that takes these obligations seriously, to get out of.
OK, so what about, in the interim, whilst we're trying to work out what to do with that, is there any way of stopping people who come here, if they fail their asylum, to stop having us fund all the litigious process? So more and more appeals, more lawyers. I mean, we're paying for that.
Yeah.
There must be a way to say, well, you failed once, you've had one chance. If you want to do it again, you need to pay for it yourself.
Well, there should be, and there should be. I think if you fail, you should be sent home.
Well,
but
exactly.
At the moment, that just isn't the case.
But they can appeal.
They can appeal.
So why can we not stop that?
Could people be able to appeal from overseas? Should people be able to possibly apply for asylum overseas and then not be taken seriously if they come over on a boat?
Can we stop that?
I think at the moment we can't, because of the legal implications, and then, you know, people can sue. They can
well, but
not only
with their own money. If you want to sue someone, use their own money. That's fine, do what you like. But I think you've been given one appeal, you've failed. Either leave or you pay for yourself to, you know, if you want to try and, you know, appeal that decision. But why can't that happen? Surely that's not a breach of human rights.
I think that's far too sensible to be considered by the political class.
Fraser Myers, thank you very much. Really
Thank you.
good to talk to you. That's Fraser Myers.
Now, former US President Jimmy Carter has died at the age of 100.
The one-term 39th president died on Sunday after spending more than a year in a hospice.
The Democrat served in the White House between 1977 and 1981 before being beaten in a re-election bid by Republican Ronald Reagan in the 1980 election. Carter's death was confirmed by his son.
Well, we're joined now by US political analyst Eric Ham. Eric, thank you very much for joining us. Happy Christmas to you. I haven't seen you since then, so I'll say Happy Christmas now. I want to ask you, Eric, so how important was Jimmy Carter in the scheme of things? Because he didn't serve that long politically.
No, he did not. And while his term was seen as uneventful at the time, he certainly became larger than life actually post-presidency. In fact, after he left the White House, he actually created the blueprint of the life and the activities of a post-president. We saw him, of course, create the Carter Center, win the Nobel Peace Prize, and also engage in helping to dissolve many of the conflicts around the world. And his life became one that was dedicated to service. And you saw many other presidents attempt to emulate his accomplishments, his achievements. We, of course, saw Bill Clinton with the Clinton Center and the work that they did around the UN General Assembly every year. Of course, Barack Obama with his My Brother's Keeper initiative, again, something that was modeled after Jimmy Carter. And so while he was seen for quite some time as being a failed president, there are those who believe that his post-presidency has been far more successful than perhaps any other president since him and even after him.
It's an interesting point, isn't it? Really, his legacy is one after those 4 years. His tenure in office, is it fair to say, was completely overshadowed by the Reagan era of the 1980s, and then after that he rebuilt it? That's really what he's leaving behind here. Is his post-presidency legacy is more important.
Yeah, that's right. Now, to be clear, I mean, there were accomplishments during his tenure in office. And of course, many will perhaps remember his boycott of the United States engaging in the Summer Olympics in Moscow because of their invasion in Afghanistan. And then, quite frankly, when you look at what's taking place right now, the strained relations between the United States and China, and while many certainly credit Richard Nixon, his predecessor, or the president before him, Gerald Ford, took over when Nixon left. Many credit Richard Nixon with actually normalizing relations with China. It was actually President Carter who actually walked through the door, establishing diplomatic ties between the United States and China. And of course, we see now those relationships being strained and will perhaps be strained even further with the incoming president, Donald Trump, coming in, threatening a trade war against China.
Now, you mentioned Donald Trump, so I just wanted to quickly touch on him because in America, there is, I think it's the Congress, is there a push to try and make sure that he doesn't become president because of supposed involvement in an insurrection?
Yeah, there has been talk of that, but I don't think that really is going anywhere.
Yeah.
We know that the certification for the election is scheduled to take place on January 6th, and because we know that a new speaker will be named on January 3rd. It likely will continue to remain House Speaker Mike Johnson. And so I think that certification will take place without any fanfare or any fireworks like we saw 4 years ago. And I think on January 20th, we will see Donald Trump very much take the oath of office.
What's the mood in the US over there at the moment with the Trump administration coming in? Is it different to 8 years ago? That it's less surprise? He's more of a familiar figure?
Well, he is more of a familiar figure. And also, too, this is an election that where he won the popular vote. And this is only the second time that we've seen a Republican president win the popular vote this century. And so I think he will come in to actually greater fanfare than what we saw when he was elected to the surprise of many back in 2016.
Now, Donald Trump made a couple of statements on Sunday following the death of Jimmy Carter. One of them, he said, we all owe him a debt of gratitude. Of course, he died on Sunday at age 100. I'm wondering, what would you say would be Carter's biggest legacy that he's left behind?
I think his legacy will undoubtedly be that of service. This is a man who we know not only attempted to govern by, political fiat, or a lot of the political battles that we see take place today were very different. It was a very different time when Jimmy Carter was president. And this was a man who simply was driven by his humility. And so I think it was that humility and that service that certainly were the hallmarks of not only his character, but also in terms of how he tried to govern, and also, as we saw, how he lived.
Now, what can we expect on the day of mourning? It's been declared for the 9th of January. Will he be entitled to a state funeral? Will lots of political leaders come together for this moment? Is it really a moment of unity to reflect on his life?
Sure. I suspect that he will lie in state here in Washington. And there will be a ceremony that will take place. And then, of course, we expect that he will be laid to rest at the Carter Center and the Carter Presidential Library, two facilities there in Georgia, where we know that he is from.
All right. Well, listen, Eric, really good to talk to you. That's political analyst Eric Ham. Thank you very much.
Right, well, let's get your weather update with Greg Dewhurst, see if we need an umbrella soon.
Heavy showers first thing will be followed by a warm, cosy day. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, welcome to our latest GB News weather forecast. Low pressure systems brings an unsettled end to 2024 and a very unsettled start to the new year as well, as wind, rain and snow feature in the forecast. Rain and snow already across Scotland this morning, continuing through the day. Some local disruption here with Met Office warnings in force. The wind's also picking up across parts of the north, particularly northern England, with gusts of 50 to 60 miles an hour. A wind warning in force here through the day. Generally cloudy though, further south, and breezy, some bright spells at times, but the cloud thick enough for 1 or 2 spots of rain, and temperatures on the mild side generally reaching 9 or 10 Celsius. A brief respite in the rain and snow for a time across Scotland this evening, but it won't be long before further rain and snow pushes back in here with some disruption. Rainfall totals building through the next 24 hours, over 100 millimetres in places. Still breezy across Northern Ireland, southern Scotland, northern England with outbreaks of rain here, but generally a drier picture for the rest of England and Wales. They're rather cloudy, the cloud thick enough for a few spots of drizzle, but on the mild side too. End the day, and you can see there further rain and snow across Scotland to end the day and take us into the early hours. Generally cloudy and breezy elsewhere. The band of rain pushing into Northern Ireland, southern Scotland, northern England as we head overnight. And temperatures with the winds coming in from the southwest holding up, generally 7 to 10 Celsius. For many, though, cold air across northern Scotland here will temperatures starting the day around 1 or 2 Celsius, snow and rain in places. And then this band of rain just slowly pushes its way southwards New Year's Eve morning time. Some strong winds developing too. Further Met Office warnings in force as low pressure really dominates, staying dry across some southern counties of England, but often cloudy. Here, mild temperatures around 11 or 12 Celsius, starting to turn colder and staying unsettled into New Year's Day.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Right, still to come, we'll be taking a look at what has been a very busy year for Prince Harry and Meghan Markle. Not. That's next. This is GB News Breakfast with Adam and Nana.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. Weekdays from midday. Well, it's interesting because I haven't actually been told specifically what I've done,
Right.
which has resulted in me being removed from my committee position, which was head of daytime. I started a podcast in September in which I interviewed Charlie Bentley-Astor, who's a detransitioner. I then also interviewed Graham Linehan and I wrote an article for his Substack. And shortly after that, I was told that I had been suspended and the university union started an investigation into me. And that very quickly became apparent to me that it was an interrogation of my gender-critical views rather than any sort of misconduct that I had been alleged to.
Right.
And Graham Linehan has been outspoken on issues relating to transgender ism, whatever you want to call it, gender ideology. And so perhaps just by having associated yourself with him as a controversial figure, that was why the investigation happened, you suspect?
Yes, and already it's quite clear that guilt by association is a crime that you can commit within university societies. I actually purchased my free speech union membership way before this all happened, when a friend helped me edit the episode with Charlie, and he got in trouble with a separate society who told him that he must disassociate himself from me, and if he didn't, further measures would be taken. So at that point, I thought, wow, I better put some damage control in place and purchase my membership in case anything happens to me.
So this decision is made by the student union, right? Is that made up of fellow students? Or who's making this call?
Well, that's actually part of my appeal. So the process has been completely improper. They haven't followed their own guidelines. There are two different guidelines as to whether a complaint is dealt with the society itself, so Leeds Student Radio, or the union, and it's basically been a mishmash of both. So it's been an improper procedure, but it is, as far as I'm aware, it's the student union who's decided to remove me.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the argument. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together and what have we got, in my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good morning. The Duke and Duchess of Sussex, that's Harry and Meghan, have had a very busy year of royal, and I do that with the exclamation mark, tours, faux royal tours, I'm going to call them, trials and tribulations, but it hasn't all been plain sailing.
Yeah, fragile business ventures and a number of high court battles mean Harry and Meghan's fights continue into 2025.
I mean, all of them brought upon by themselves, by the way. Our royal correspondent, Cameron Walker, has more.
Prince Harry and Meghan's year included a mixture of personal triumphs and professional setbacks. In February, Harry settled his phone hacking case with Mirror Group newspapers, winning reportedly £300,000 in damages, plus legal costs. The Duke and Duchess of Sussex celebrated their 6th wedding anniversary this year, and in December, their office released a Christmas card featuring a new photo of the couple with their children. Other photos nodded to their 2 royal-style tours to Nigeria and Colombia. In Nigeria, Harry met injured service personnel and Meghan co-hosted a Women in Leadership event. In Colombia, the couple highlighted how social media and the internet can harm children.
All of us agree, despite whatever disparities there are throughout the world, no one contests the fact that we want to keep our children safe.
A lot of people are scared and uncertain. And I think one of the solutions to that is education and awareness.
But both tours were not without controversy. Colombia in particular raised eyebrows about security because the Foreign Office advises British citizens not to travel to parts of the country. At the same time, Harry claims he can't bring his wife to the UK for safety reasons. It's understood the Sussexes were provided with a full security detail in Colombia. The Duke and Duchess also launched the Parents Network, supporting parents whose children have been affected by online harms. 14-year-old Breck Bednar was groomed online before being murdered in 2014. His mum, Lauren Lefebvre, says Harry and Meghan's profile helps raise awareness.
When people like to listen to a celebrity or a royal or, some people that have, some sort of famous element, it just brings more attention to it and helps with the cause. And I think that's really important because sometimes we just feel like a bunch of parents with no faces. We're just any old parent. And yet this can happen to any child.
In 2025, Meghan Markle plans to finally launch her lifestyle brand American Riviera Orchard and a new Netflix series focused on cooking, gardening and entertaining. But Harry's recent Polo documentary received poor reviews, leading to speculation about the future of their multi-million-pound Netflix deal. Harry and Meghan appeared to focus more on separate business and charity ventures, but are expected to travel together to Canada to attend the Invictus Games in Whistler this February. The Invictus Games, seen as one of Harry's biggest successes, supports sick or injured veterans in a Paralympic-style competition. Harry will dominate global headlines as early as January when he enters the dock in London to be grilled by lawyers representing the Sun newspaper over his unlawful information-gathering allegations. The Sun has always denied Harry's claims. As his father, the King, continues weekly cancer treatment, perhaps there'll be another opportunity for the pair to meet too. Cameron Walker, GB News.
See, now I can't take those two seriously, Harry and Meghan. That's all very laudable, doing things for good causes, and that's wonderful. But you would think that if you are that empathetic and compassionate, that maybe Meghan might go and see her dad, who was sick, and at one point we all thought he would die. He didn't die, he's still alive, but I can't say his health is that great. Yeah. I mean, it's just not... It's not believable if that's your level of empathy. If you really are that empathetic, you should be able to forgive whatever's gone on, and you should be able to move forward.
Yeah, well, and Harry, of course, his dad, the King, he's got cancer as well.
I mean, at least Harry came to see his dad.
He did, that's true, that's true. We were talking during that about the 300,000 plus legal costs that they got, which, you know, in the grand scheme of things, is not much compared to their Netflix deal, is it? Which they're very happy about.
Well,
Spotify and the book and this and that.
Didn't Spotify, the guy, one of the execs, call them grifters? I won't say the first word because you're not allowed to say that at breakfast, and I won't even, allude to it. But you know what I mean. He called them grifters.
Yeah. Well, after signing over the cash and realising, actually, this probably wasn't worth it.
And now they're not. I don't think that deal's being renewed. Meghan's business is in a lot of trouble. She had issues with the trademarking of American Riviera Orchard, bit of a mouthful to say, and if you're typing it in, you'll probably spell it wrong, so that seems a bit silly. I can't take them seriously at all. I don't believe their levels of empathy because they haven't displayed that towards their own family. Why not take your children to see the grandparents?
It's a bit cynical.
How that feels. You're talking about protecting children online and this and that, but
it's not reflected in your own family, in your own behaviour.
So I find them a bit disingenuous.
There we go. But that was Cameron Walker. A busy year ahead for the Sussexes as well. Now, if you didn't get everything on your Christmas list, did you get everything on your Christmas list?
I wrote a list and I got everything.
Santa was good. All right, well, how about £50,000 in tax-free cash in the new year? How about that?
Well, it really could be all yours in our biggest ever Great British giveaway. Here are all the details you need to enter.
There's still plenty of time to grab your chance to win our biggest cash prize ever, an incredible £50,000. What would you spend £50,000 on in the coming year? Spectacular holidays, a brand new car, home improvements, or maybe you'd just like to save it for a special occasion? For another chance to win, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. You can call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB10 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 31st of January. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Yes, good luck indeed. Still to come, Aidan McGee will be here to go through all of the latest sports news. That is next.
This is GB News Breakfast with me, Adam, and Nana Equip.
The latest GB News travel. Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. Buses replaced Tyne and Wear Metro services between Heworth and Monument for emergency engineering works linked to the closure of the Gateshead flyover. In North Yorkshire, the A64 is closed in both directions between the Cotmanthorpe roundabout and the A19 at the Fulford interchange in York after an accident last night. In Manchester, Blackfriars Road is closed in both directions between Great Clowes Street and Mount Street after an accident involving a bus and a car. The Port of Holyhead remains closed for emergency repairs to damage caused by Storm Dara earlier this month. No sailings between Holyhead and Dublin, we reckon, until the middle of January at the earliest, and trains aren't running into and out of Liverpool Street Station in London because of engineering work. And that's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg and this is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Lee Anderson's Real World, Fridays from 7 p.m.
So, how did you get into radio initially?
It's the old thing, you do discos.
Yeah.
Back in the days when you used to put needles on.
What sort of year we're talking about?
Oh, it was black and white.
Okay.
That's as close as you're going to get.
Beatles, Rolling Stones?
Yeah. Sort of later than... Yeah, sort of a bit later than that, doing discos. But then you sort of do a tape. I did a tape for BBC Radio Manchester, the local BBC station. And just one off, got a copy of that, edit. Yeah. Naively thought, everybody's going to send a tape to Piccadilly, which was the Manchester station, which was 73. And instead of that, a couple of years later, I sent a tape to Radio City in Liverpool, not thinking that everybody in Liverpool's going to be sending a tape there. And just a guy just went, I'm too good for this, doing the overnights, walked out, and my tape was on the top of the pile. And I got a phone call on a Thursday night, Thursday, the 12th of February, 76. Can you do 2 till 6 in the morning on Radio City in Liverpool? I thought it was one of my pals.
And what was you talking about on that radio show?
It was an overnight programme, so it's music.
Yeah.
In those days, you didn't have much needle time, but clever devil here noticed that the BBC stuff was not needle time.
Yeah.
So I used to put like the Goons on and the Hancocks. So you've got half an hour and me and the security guy, Bert, on the door. We're the only two in the building. Yeah. I used to get in my car, put the Goons on, get in my car, dash down to the pier head, get a bacon butty, listening to it all the time, hoping that the record's not stuck, and then dashing back.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Welcome back now. It's time to go through all the latest sports news. Aidan McGee is here with us.
Merry Christmas,
Good morning to both.
Aidan.
Merry Christmas and hopefully Happy New Year as well. Or Twixmas, we call it, don't we?
Do we call it
it's that weird
the Twilight Zone?
Yeah, exactly.
Too much, eats loads of cheese and crackers.
Yeah, that's me most of the year, actually. But no, listen, it was a fantastic day of Premier League action yesterday. We have to start with Liverpool. Dawn Neeson, your panellist this morning, she was absolutely petrified yesterday on the breakfast show of going to West Ham to watch Liverpool. And I said, don't worry about it. I think you'll turn them over. I think you'll do well. Anyway, it finished West Ham 0, Liverpool 5. Liverpool looked absolutely irresistible. They extended their lead at the top of the table. You know what? Jurgen Klopp's a huge personality at that club for 9 years, Nana. He leaves last summer. He announces it, about last January, February time, I think it was. And you just expect that there's going to be a drop-off. You think, how can you replace a man like that, just like Man United struggled to replace Sir Alex Ferguson, still haven't done so. And yet this guy comes in relatively unheralded. I'm talking about Arne Slot here from Holland. The trajectory from Holland to here over the last 20 years, players or managers, very hit or miss. You know, you don't know what you're getting for your money. And he goes in there, makes a couple of tweaks to this side. These players are playing better and better than ever before.
So Jurgen, whilst he was good, there's obviously better.
Well, I don't know about... Well, so far, yeah, you have to say so. I mean, look, they just don't seem to be able to lose games at the moment. And, look, West Ham were easy meat yesterday, I have to say. I mean, they're struggling a bit themselves. They haven't really adapted to their new manager, Julen Lopetegui, who has a lot of pedigree around Europe. But, look, to go anywhere in the Premier League now and win 5-0 is absolutely outstanding. I fully expect them to win their second Premier League title in 35 years. That's how long, or how barren this last 35 years has been for Liverpool.
Now, I thought Dawn supported Arsenal.
Who, sorry?
Dawn.
No. She went red today. She went red today. But
proper hammer. She's got the hammers on the thing.
She was there, was she?
Oh dear.
She was indeed. Yeah.
Maybe you shouldn't mention it, actually. No, I'm going to mention it. Of course you are. Absolutely.
Everything she said yesterday about fearing that performance in West Ham and fearing the result turned out to be absolutely correct. When I looked at the score, I thought, oh, Dawn was right, but never mind.
Even I, who doesn't really take any interest in football, knew that they were defeated 5-0.
Yeah, look, as I say, they're outstanding. And they're known, Arne Slot, as because they've been so outstanding, they're known as the slot machine. That's how efficient they are.
He's a natural fit there.
They've been helped. Yeah, he is. They've been helped by Man City's drop-off, although they won yesterday for the second time in 14 games. But I want to shine a light as well on the West Ham goalkeeper, the former goalkeeper, Ludek McCloskey. He played for West Ham 400 matches, played for QPR as well back in the 90s, a mainstay of the goal there, and he was announced yesterday that he's withdrawn from cancer treatment, very sadly. He wants to enjoy what's left of his life. He didn't want to go through another round of chemotherapy and everything that does to your body, and he was paraded outside in front of the pitch, on the pitch yesterday before the game. A huge round of applause from everybody around the ground. Liverpool fans remember what an obstacle he was to them. Even back in 1995, I remember Eric Cantona with the Kung Fu kick. He was out of the United team, but United nearly made it 3 Premier League titles in a row. But they just, on the last day of the season, they went to West Ham, Upton Park, May 1995, the day Blackburn Rovers won it up at Anfield. And it was 1-1, and United just could not beat this bloke. They just went through one-on-one, McClare, Hughes, Andy Cole, and he just kept keeping him out, and they lost the league that day on account of that performance. He's an absolute Premier League legend, and look, he wants to enjoy the rest of his life. I mean, it could go on for a lot longer yet. You don't know.
Well, and also there may be some other treatments that are better than chemotherapy.
You just don't know. You
may come along.
You do. He's still working. He's a goalkeeping coach in his native Czechoslovakia with Baník Ostrava, which I believe he was at West. That's the club he was at before he joined West Ham in February 1990. So yeah, fair props to him. And we have to look at the darts as well, because we had an astonishing upset last night. I say astonishing upset. I mean, Luke Humphries, the champion, was beaten by a 2-time world title winner who, he's won it quite recently. So it shouldn't be that much of an upset, but there was some verbal jousting.
The darts, as in actual darts, playing darts.
Absolutely, yeah. Arrows.
That's made a bit of a resurgence, hasn't it? Because in my day, people would have a pint and a fag, and they'd be chucking a dart.
Yeah, but it was still
it's changed. It's not that anymore, is it?
Yeah, well, this is still. They don't want to lose the pub etiquette completely, but it is certainly.
They're not drinking, are they?
There's
still a bit of that, isn't there?
Yeah, still a bit of it, but more off screen, more than ever off screen.
I mean, they'd be holding the dart and a fag in one hand, and there'd be a pint and a dart and a fag in one hand and the dart in the other.
Remember, though, it was very popular back then.
Oh, it was.
And they've had a resurgence recently, and it's mainly on account of this young kid, Luke Littler, who's now 17. He's in action tonight against Ryan Joyce, but last night, Luke Humphries, the guy who beat Luke Littler in last year's final and kind of upset everybody, he was involved in some verbal jousting with Peter Wright. He's 54. Luke Humphries is 27. And he said he was trying to wind him up, get inside his head, basically, Peter Wright was, and it worked because Luke Humphries responded by saying, well, I've only got to win one more world title, and I've matched Peter Wright's career, and I'm 30-odd years younger than him. And then he goes in last night, don't write off the old dog, because he got beaten 4-1 last night, and he's out, and that's his dream in tatters of retaining it. Peter Wright marches on. He finished bottom of the Premier League in the last year or so. He had no form whatsoever. But he proved that when you've got that pedigree and you're in front of the lights, you've got 6,000 people there, whatever it is, you can still do the business. And he certainly did that last night, no question.
That's like an old movie. Don't bite off the old dog yet.
Well, they probably will make a movie about it.
Good game.
I
was trying to think Jim Bowen. What was his punchline?
Bullseye. It was... let's look at what you could have won. You can't beat a bitter bully. Yeah, it's a bit Mancunian now, really, but I think he was from Lancashire. But no, that was a big show. But that was the thing, it was so big that it even spawned a prime-time game show. And it used to make me laugh because someone who won the speedboat would always be from Birmingham, wouldn't they?
Oh, yeah. Look what you could have won.
It was brilliant. And so, but look, we'll look about that later on. We've got some big matches tonight and the finals on January the 3rd. But yeah, you're absolutely right. It's huge. 83% up demand was this year for the tickets compared to last year. It was already quite big. It was getting bigger and bigger. It's benefited from televisual coverage in the last sort of 20 years, certainly. I covered it at the Circus Tavern in 20 years ago, and it was struggling. It was on its backside, it really was, but it's had a real turn up. And that's what happens when you inject a little bit of razzmatazz. I'll tell you what, there's some sports out there you could do with a bit of that stardust. Cricket and snooker are two of them.
Do you think?
I think so, yeah. You've got to allow yourself to
I used to love watching snooker.
Yes.
It was the days of Hurricane Higgins, Stephen Hendry. Yeah, and I used to watch it, and it was just fantastic.
Yes.
The accuracy,
yes.
the physics of it all, because obviously it's physics, it's angles.
The final in
Fantastic
'85,
game.
Dennis Taylor against Steve Davis.
I remember.
That attracted 1 in the morning, 22 million viewers.
I used to watch it. I used to watch these things all the time.
There's no chance that happened.
And I tell you what, snooker desperately. If there's one sport out there that needs a Luke Littler.
Yeah, bit of showbiz, bit of excitement.
Yeah. And it's run by the same people as well. It can happen. Yeah.
Thank you, Aidan McGee.
See you in a bit.
See you in a bit.
Well, if you are in search of some winter sun, here is the forecast for some of the top European holiday destinations.
Ready to soak up that holiday sunshine?
Won't we need some cover?
No worries, all sorted.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hello there. Conditions slowly improving across the far east of the Mediterranean, but the risk of showers across southern parts of Spain over the next 24 hours. Low pressure starting to pull away, but still the risk of some heavy showers for Cyprus, but generally dry across Greece, across into Italy. Sunny spells here, temperatures around average for the time of year, but the risk of some showers across southern Spain, and generally dry as well towards Tenerife there, reaching 20 Celsius. Generally dry for the next few days, best of the sunshine towards eastern parts. See you soon.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Well, still to come, we'll be going through today's front pages with Dawn Neeson and Norman Baker in Making the News. That's next. This is GB News Breakfast.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Sunday with Michael Portillo from 11, only on GB News.
Australian chef David Thompson is opening a new restaurant, Long Chim. The name, which translates roughly as come and try, already has locations in Sydney, Perth and Dubai, and previously operated in Melbourne and Singapore. It marks a return to London for Thompson, whose Belgravia haunt Naarm closed in 2012. But that earned him accolades, including, in 2002, the first Michelin star awarded to a Thai restaurant. So you've mentioned Bangkok there. What is your love for Thai food? Describe to us why you think Thai food is such a great cuisine.
It's endlessly complex and satisfying. It just resonates on the palate. For me, as a cook, it offers a challenge. And the way that you cook it is you chase taste. You don't follow a recipe, you follow your sense of taste. And so with all these dishes that you'll taste today, but also in the restaurant that we're opening, it's all about a sequence of taste and seasoning that has some balance.
What is this dish?
This is something called gengari gung, which is an aromatic curry of prawns.
Lovely looking prawns, yes.
They're not too bad. And it's with something strange called water bamboo, which we found up in Chinatown just the other day. And it's a perfect accompaniment. I'll just take a little.
Yes. Describe that perfect accompaniment to me again.
Water bamboo.
What is it? Water bamboo, yeah.
And you would not know of it, because I didn't know of it that much either. And it tastes like a little bit of like young coconut meat. So it's perfect with these prawns and this curry. And what you need to have with this curry, because this is the way that Thai food works, an interplay of flavours, this little cucumber salad on the side, and that helps to bring out the spice
and
the sweetness and the savoury quality.
I must say, all of this looks so lovely.
GB News, the People's Channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is the nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun. No, he didn't say that, though. I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back now. Let's take a look at some of the newspaper front pages.
Right, the front of the Daily Mail, it leads with council staff are being allowed to work from the beach over 2,000 times since the pandemic.
And the Times reports that the number of young people calling in sick to work is rising amid a surge in ill health.
The Telegraph leads with Labour planning to diversify the national curriculum to decolonise subjects that seem too monocultural.
And The Guardian reports that ministers have ordered structural surveys of a group of post-war school buildings amid concerns about hidden defects that could lead to structural failures.
The front cover of the Daily Express leads with experts urging people who are looking at buying weight loss drugs to think twice before buying online.
Now, joining us to go through what's making the news is former editor at the Daily Star, Dawn Neeson, and former Lib Dem Minister Norman Baker.
Right, let's start with this one. Immediately it sprung to my eyes shot open when I read this. The national curriculum. So the national curriculum is set to be made more diverse under Labour's plans. Now, Bridget Phillipson has begun a review to refresh what is taught in schools, pledging to breathe new life into outdated curriculum. I just find this a little bit scary. Dawn Neeson.
Yeah, no, it is a bit scary, and it's certainly going to annoy people. I mean, just teach them maths and English, right? Just get kids through school so they come out of it so they can read and do maths and have the basics. So many kids are leaving school not knowing the basics. That's scary. So now, as if teachers haven't got enough to worry about, diversifying the national curriculum. So basically, we are going to make it more diverse to reflect the diverse authors and cultures and perspective from around the world. Because history and English curricula at the moment are largely monoculture. I don't even know what some of these words mean, right? So I had a bad education, obviously. But it's just like, we need to concentrate more on ethnicity and sexual orientation, which are underrepresented in the national curriculum.
No, we don't.
Oh, just maths, English, history. I mean, it's important. Geography.
Also, what age are these kids going to be?
I think we are talking about. Well, I think we are mainly talking about senior schools. Yeah,
but we don't know that because the indoctrination can start at a very young age, which is what you would do if you were trying to change the mindset of people. I think this is actually frightening. Nobody's asked them to do this decolonisation, monoculturalism, or whatever they're calling it.
Well, I agree with Don. This is not a priority. The priority is to make sure kids can add up properly and they can speak English, and they know the basics of life. That's what they need to know. It's also important that they understand, for example, how society works. There's not enough treatment about how society works. You know, you ask people what an MP is, and a lot of them don't know what an MP is. So there's some of that needs to be... Some of that, well, some of that needs to be given more priority. The other thing is, we're failing on foreign languages in this country.
Yes.
People who can't speak... You know, in my day, you used to have people learning French always, as a matter of fact. Then you chose either German or Spanish or something else. Now kids don't learn a second language. It's really embarrassing.
Why are they so obsessed with this sort of rhetoric and the cultural wars, as it were, than really focusing on the fact that a lot of secondary schools are failing, which is why people are sending their kids to private schools?
Exactly.
I would rather hear them talk about what they're going to do for state schools, but not by taking everything from the private sector. And why are they not focusing on what the government can do specifically for state schools without destroying the private sector?
I have absolutely no idea what they're doing, and that's why I don't think they know what they're doing. And Bridget Phillipson, there are huge problems with the education in this country. Concentrate on what's really important, as Norman says.
Yeah.
You know, kids, talking a foreign language. We used to, to learn French, and now kids can't even talk English when they were in school properly. Well, there's another story we're talking about where their handwriting's gone to pot.
Yeah, we'll come on to that, I think. I mean, the other thing is, I think the objective of the government should be to make the state education system so good that nobody wants to go private.
Well,
that way around.
Well, you see, that's the thing. But with her education, or VAT rate, which is what people are calling it, it will raise, if it has the right proportion of people staying in the private sector, 1.6, I think it's gone down now, but 1.4 billion or so to assist. But that's 6,500 teachers across the Parliament, which is 0.3 of a teacher, and for breakfast clubs. It just doesn't add up.
Yeah, that's one new teacher for every three schools.
But also, you'd have a massive influx of
people
students entering
from
the
private
sector,
school.
from the private sector.
Yeah, potentially up to 90,000.
It's really stupid.
Right. And already there's some... I've seen
where
some
are they going to go?
Crowding on in
and plus, with you going back to this story, whether it's geography or history, right? Teach history as it happened. You don't need to change the facts of history. This is what happened. It might have been wrong. Learn how it was wrong. Slavery, for example. Geography. It doesn't matter what sex you are or what race you are. Geography, Paris is the capital of France, no matter what your bloody sexuality is. Sorry.
Apologies for the swears there. I hear you, you're passionate, but
Yes,
most of us are quite angry at this. Now, what about this one about council staff have been allowed to work from the beach more than 2,000 times since the pandemic? Norman Baker.
Well, I mean, this is a story which appears every now and then in the papers. It's true, of course. I mean, they have been, since COVID in particular, when people weren't able to go to the office for very good health reasons, they were allowed to work from home or from other locations. So I'm sure that some people who work on the beach are working on the beach, but quite a lot of them probably aren't.
Well, I'd rather that councils were efficient, and then when they're efficient, then you can say, all right, you can maybe work somewhere else. But if they're not, I want them to come to the office. Dawn Neeson.
Well, this is the problem, isn't it? I mean, we're all going to face higher council tax bills this year.
Exactly.
Yeah, along with everything else we're going to face. So we're all going to be absolutely skint going into the new year. And we are going back into the new year. Many of us are going back to work we're not looking forward to, or in jobs that we are going to be earning less because of all the tax we're paying. And now we're reading about people, you know, from the local council working in places like Barbados and Ibiza. And, you know, Ibiza, OK, at least on the same time scale. But if you're working on a different time scale, how can you be serving the people of, say, North Devon if you're working in Barbados on a completely different time scale? You can't.
You'd be in bed half the time, wouldn't you?
Well, exactly. It's just insane. And this was a Freedom of Information request by the Taxpayers Allowance. And the actual figures are going to be a lot worse than this, the amount of council staff that are working from abroad, because many councils refuse to give the information over or haven't got back to them yet.
But also, Norman, as you said, it's a perennial problem, isn't it? We hear about this time and time again. Nothing really changes.
I think it's got worse since COVID, because before COVID, look, legitimately, some people could work from home, and flexible working has got some merit on it. And if you were a mum with some kids and stuff like that, you know, be able to work 1 day a week from home or whatever.
Biscuit, isn't it?
This has been extended massively because of COVID, and we haven't reeled it back, although people now can work quite safely, obviously, at work.
Yeah, but I just don't think you should be allowed to do that. It's all about productivity. If you're not productive, and certainly not to go somewhere where the time zones are totally off, it's just ridiculous. Now, finally, Dawn, this one, the majority of Brits polled by the Mirror have backed their campaign to stop cosmetic surgery cowboys.
Well, I mean, look, the campaign the Mirror are running to stop cosmetic cowboys is a good thing, right? The splash they've got out of it, most Brits back our campaign, because the campaign is to stop mostly women, but men as well these days, getting butchered by cowboy operators. You know, we mentioned the Brazilian butt lift. Women have died because of that.
It's very dangerous.
Yeah, so it's very dangerous. So most people would agree that it should be more regulation within the industry, so the people performing these surgeries are registered and there is some kind of medical qualification. So most people support that. So the fact that 83% support the Mirror's campaign to get it more regulated, what are the rest of them thinking? Oh, no, let's have more people dying. I mean, you know, you want to die because you want a better bum. I mean, it's mad. But, you know, we do need to do something, and it is, particularly, as you said earlier, going abroad, Nana, going to places and coming back with dodgy treatments that, you know, people are losing their lives over. So it's a serious campaign, but...
Norman, final word to you.
Well, final word, I just want to pick up, just link with that, it's front page of the Express, which is about weight loss drugs being bought online. These are prescription drugs. They should be illegal to buy prescription drugs online.
Do you think? All right, well, it helps to relieve the NHS, some might say. But, yeah, online, you don't know what you're getting, do you? Exactly. Norman Baker, Dawn Neeson, thank you very much. They'll be back in around about an hour. But exciting stuff, isn't it?
Exciting indeed.
Loads more still to come here on GB News. Stay with us, gbnews.com/your say. We want to hear your comments. We'll read some of them out throughout the show. But now let's get an update with your weather from Greg Dewhurst.
Despite the morning rain, it'll be a nice, warm, cosy day ahead. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, welcome to our latest GB News weather forecast. Low pressure systems brings an unsettled end to 2024 and a very unsettled start to the new year as well, as wind, rain and snow feature in the forecast. Rain and snow already across Scotland this morning, continuing through the day. Some local disruption here with Met Office warnings in force. The wind's also picking up across parts of the north, particularly northern England, with gusts of 50 to 60 miles an hour. A wind warning in force here through the day. Generally cloudy though, further south, and breezy, some bright spells at times, but the cloud thick enough for 1 or 2 spots of rain, and temperatures on the mild side generally reaching 9 or 10 Celsius. A brief respite in the rain and snow for a time across Scotland this evening. But it won't be long before further rain and snow pushes back in here with some disruption. Rainfall totals building through the next 24 hours, over 100 millimetres in places. Still breezy across Northern Ireland, southern Scotland, northern England with outbreaks of rain here. But generally a drier picture for the rest of England and Wales. They're rather cloudy, the cloud thick enough for a few spots of drizzle, but on the mild side to end the day. And you can see there further rain and snow across Scotland to end the day and take us into the early hours. Generally cloudy and breezy elsewhere. The band of rain pushing into Northern Ireland, southern Scotland, northern England as we head overnight. And temperatures with the winds coming in from the southwest holding up, generally 7 to 10 Celsius. For many, though, cold air across northern Scotland here will temperatures starting the day around 1 or 2 Celsius, snow and rain in places. And then this band of rain just slowly pushes its way southwards New Year's Eve morning time. Some strong winds developing too. Further Met Office warnings in force as low pressure really dominates, staying dry across some southern counties of England, but often cloudy. Here, mild temperatures around 11 or 12 Celsius, starting to turn colder and staying unsettled into New Year's Day.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. Buses replace Tyne and Wear metro services between Heworth and Monument for emergency engineering works. In North Yorkshire, the A64 is closed eastbound from the Cotmanthorpe roundabout to the A19 at the Fulford interchange at York after an accident last night. Westbound, though, has reopened. In Manchester, Blackfriars Road is closed each way between Great Clew Street and Mount Street after an accident involving a bus and a car. The port of Holyhead remains closed to repair damage caused by Storm Dara earlier this month. It's expected to remain closed until mid-January at the earliest, with sailings suspended between Holyhead and Dublin. And trains aren't running into and out of Liverpool Street Station in London again today because of engineering work. And that's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
There's still plenty of time to grab your chance to win our biggest cash prize ever, an incredible £50,000. What would you spend £50,000 on in the coming year? Spectacular holidays, a brand new car, home improvements, or maybe you'd just like to save it for a special occasion? For another chance to win, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. You can call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB10 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 31st of January. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent? I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Very good morning. The blame game.
The government says smuggling gangs are responsible for deaths in the English Channel.
3 migrants died off the coast of France on Sunday morning after a boat of 60 people capsized. And America is in mourning as former US President Jimmy Carter has died at the age of 100.
Joe Biden praised the one-term 39th president as a man of principle, faith and humility, while Donald Trump stated Americans owe him a debt of gratitude.
King Charles and Prime Minister Keir Starmer have paid tribute to those who lost their lives in a plane crash in South Korea on Sunday.
Tours, trials and triumphs, how Harry and Meghan fared in 2024.
Good morning. There was a massive shock at the Ali Pali, and Luke is out. No, not that one. It's the PDC World Darts Champion Luke Humphries, who was eliminated by two-time champion Peter Wright. We'll also have a roundup of the day's Premier League action. Join me later.
Low pressure dominating the end of 2024 and taking us into the new year as well. Met Office warnings out for wind, rain and snow. Find out all the details coming up in the programme soon.
It's just gone 7 o'clock. I'm Adam Cherry.
I'm Nana Acquia, and this is GB News Breakfast. Morning to you. Did you have a nice Christmas, Adam?
I did, yeah. Ate too much, drank too much, feeling fantastic. How about you? How about everyone?
I had an interesting and nice Christmas with my new man. They all want to know. They all want to know who he is.
Yeah.
Some suggestions out there. Somebody said Ben Habib.
Exclusive.
Well, it was on the internet. It was on the internet. It was on the internet.
Did you write it?
I didn't write it. Yeah. Well, what about you?
Get people's views.
Aidan, did you have a nice Christmas?
Wonderful. Yeah, I was in here most of the time. I wasn't in on the 27th. I did Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, Boxing Day, 28, 29. Yeah, I'm in all the time basically. But I still managed to have. So I've dropped my lid off my pen, I do apologise. No, I had a wonderful time, I have to say, because, I mean, you might work, but you're appreciated for working, and when you get home, you don't get home that late. I mean, I got home at 2 o'clock on Christmas Day. You're still able to enjoy Christmas. There aren't loads of kids in our household.
Some time for enough turkey and all that, did you do?
More than enough, yeah. I did two lots. I fell asleep at around about 6.
Perfect, yeah.
Which is fine. Which is fine. I had a wonderful time. I've worked 24 Christmas days in a row, so I'm proud of that. I can't keep the record going now, haven't I?
Asking the time, it tells you how to make a watch. What about you, Fraser Miles? How was yours?
It was great, nice and relaxing. Managed to avoid work for a couple of days at least, which was good. A rare thing around these parts. But yeah, I was up in Southport with my family. So
that's lovely. That's lovely. Look at that. That's all nice, isn't it? Now we're in the Twixmas zone now, aren't we? So lots of things.
Everyone's just horizontal for about, a week and a half before a week or so.
Crimbo limbo.
Crimbo limbo. It all begins again tomorrow night.
All starts again. Well, listen, it's fast approaching 3 minutes after 7 o'clock. A big story. French authorities confirmed 3 deaths yesterday morning following an incident off the coast of Sangatte. That was near Calais, in which 45 people were rescued after struggling to board a small boat bound for the UK.
Border Security and Asylum Minister Dame Angela Eagles said that ruthless criminals were responsible for overloading the boats.
I hear that, but what about the people getting on them? Who do you think is really to blame? Well, joining us now, Deputy Editor of Spiked, Fraser Myers. Are the smuggling gangs to blame for this, or should the boats be stopped now? Can we really seriously blame the smugglers?
Well, you can directly, and it is true that, they're the ones, allowing this trade to happen. They're part of this trade. They're making huge amounts of money from it. They stuff the boats to a ridiculous extent, putting people's lives in danger pretty much as soon as they leave the shore. So, yes, of course, they should be condemned, and someone has to put a stop to it. But, the government also has a responsibility to have the right policies in place to ensure that there isn't such big pull factors for people making this journey and coming to the UK. We know the problem is that, pretty much everyone who comes, I mean, if you say around 100,000 people have applied for asylum in the past year. We're not quite at record levels of small boats this year, but it's up, I think, around 25% on last year. Everyone knows that at the end of that process, they might, either be able to slip into the black market, they might apply for asylum, be put up in a hotel. Pretty much whatever happens, they're very unlikely to be deported. Sometimes, even if they go on, and I'm not suggesting that migrants are criminals, but even if they do go on to commit horrendous crimes, often they will still be allowed to stay in the UK, or they won't be forcibly removed. So I think until that issue is sorted, until people know that if they violate the UK's borders, that they will be sent home, then this is going to continue. And that's something that I don't feel that Starmer and the Labour government are that keen on addressing.
But even you, I've asked you, and you didn't even blame the migrants themselves. Everyone says, oh, it's this and that. What about the people getting on the boats? There must be something where they must be held responsible for all this too. I get it that you are fleeing persecution of France, but you know what I mean? because this is meant to be for people who are genuinely fleeing persecution. Now, if you're coming via Smobber, and I get that you can go wherever you like, that is fine, but I hear a lot of this. There was one migrant in Greece saying that, he doesn't want to be in a tent anymore, so that's why he's coming to the UK.
Yeah, I mean, look, there are a variety of different reasons why people will come. So, yes, as you say, some people genuinely fleeing persecution, although, again, as you say, not clear why the UK and not a country nearby.
Well,
the vast majority
of tents in France, we have tents.
Yeah.
Whereas in the UK, they have hotels.
In the UK, they put up in a hotel.
Why can't we do that? Why can't we put tents up? What's wrong with us?
I think we also don't want to have people gathering in tents anywhere, around. That creates.
But if the pull factor, which is what you said, if the pull factor is that they're going to be in a hotel, then in a 5-star, you see all the TikTok videos, they're having a great time, they're then roaming around this country. If they thought that they'd be in a tent, I don't think they'd go on a boat to get to another tent.
Or they should be in a place that's designed specifically for asylum seekers, right?
Well,
the problem is that they're completely overflowed, and so they've ended up booking all these hotels. And yeah, of course, someone on that in that situation should not be put up in a 5-star hotel. That's ridiculous, and it is creating the problem that it's meant to solve. Ironically,
Fraser, what does this do to the domestic political scene? What does it do in Westminster? Because you've got the Conservatives riven by this, you've got Reform snapping at the Conservatives' heels. Labour, they're in government and they are perceived to be failing on this. Is everyone just going to be disillusioned with total failure across the board on this?
I think so. I think because you have seen both parties fail to, or both main parties, I should say, spectacularly fail to get a grip on this problem. The only beneficiaries, I think, will be Reform. The Conservatives... unfortunately, they could start to talk tough, but people will just point to their own record in government, not just in terms of allowing this small boats crisis to get out of hand. It began under their watch, partly as a result of actually better enforcement on other routes. But actually, illegal migration has been exploding. Legal migration has exploded too on the Conservatives' watch. So many people might not, whatever Kemi Badenoch says, however tough she talks on it, people will look at their record. However tough Keir Starmer talks on this, they will be looking at the fact that small boats crossings have gone up since he became Prime Minister. He is talking tough on this, but again, it is at the moment just talk. So really, the only people who can capitalise on it are likely to be Reform, who are an untested proposition. They are going to take the hardest line on this. I mean, they're talking even about net zero migration, which is quite an extreme policy, but there you go. It seems as if they are the only people...
What do you mean, net zero migration? They're talking about it?
That was what I mean. One of the policies at the last election was to say that all legal migration should effectively be one in, one out, which I think probably most people would accept. There are labour shortages in certain areas, care sector, NHS.
Well, until you've got things, I think what they were saying was until you've got things sorted, and that's kind of a sensible plan, because you've already got mass immigration. You need to sort of deal with the people who are here already. So that would be, I think, a sensible thing to do in the interim until you then can, start picking people specifically for the job shortfalls within this country.
I think you definitely need. I don't think you definitely need to have control, but there could be. You wouldn't want to then inadvertently create other crises in, say, the NHS or in other sectors and things like that.
Well, I think the point they're making is right now I would like to see the Labour government putting in more training for people in this country so that in 4 or 5 years they will be ready to take the reins and do the jobs instead of importing people at a cheaper rate, which in my view is a form of almost slave labour, as it were, because some of the jobs the British people wouldn't do because it's not, it's not profitable or not good.
Yeah, and I think this has been the real tragedy here, is that migration has basically been used as a sort of sticking plaster for broader failures in the economy, failures to provide high-wage jobs, failures to provide training, and you would have hoped that it's something that companies and even the public sector became addicted to when we were in the EU, and we would have hoped that that would change after Brexit. It doesn't seem to have changed. So it's not just, as you say, both legal jobs where carers are paid way below what they deserve for such a difficult job, but also illegally where people are paid effectively slave rates.
Has that Brexit debate now morphed to the ECHR debate? Is that going to loom over our politics for the next 4 years?
I think so, because it seems as if that certainly the ECHR is not necessarily the great block to stopping boats in the channel, but what the ECHR, the role it plays is that it's basically preventing the UK from deporting even some of the most grotesque foreign criminals. So you end up with these absurd cases where someone can commit a horrendous crime in the UK and they can't be deported on human rights grounds. We know that there are so many routes to claim asylum on the basis of, often people converting to Christianity on a bogus basis. People will say they're gay. People will say they have a right to a family life. There's all kinds of reasons that a lot of people sometimes would think that they're not really sufficient grounds for you to stay in the UK, especially if you're a criminal. The ECHR keeps them here. And so if there were to be a referendum on the ECHR, I don't think any party's going to offer it, but they should. I think that would be I think it would be a winning proposal. But once we have the ECHR debate out in the country, then people will want to leave it because it's utterly absurd and indefensible at this point.
Well, I think, as I said before, in the interim, they should at least do something to stop people from being able to repeatedly appeal at our expense. One appeal, maybe, but after that, if you fail, pay for it yourself. That's what I see. Fraser Miles, thank you very much. Really good to talk to you. Thank you.
Now, some of the largest police forces in the UK have seen a double spike in types of religious hate crime in the past 18 months.
Numbers have jumped following the start of the Hamas-Israel conflict in autumn 2023 and again following the riots in the summer.
Well, to discuss this, we are joined by Peter Blexley, who's the former Scotland Yard detective. Peter, what's going on here? What do you make of this?
Good morning. Well, after the murderous brutality of Hamas on the 7th of October 2023, there was, as if Jewish people hadn't suffered enough, there was a rise in crimes against them in the UK. Synagogues, Jewish individuals and such like being subjected to some very horrific crimes. Then, almost perversely, after the appalling murders of those 3 beautiful young children in Southport and the attempted murder of so many other people, there was a rise in crimes against people of the Islamic faith. So mosques were targeted, people were attacked on public transport and the like. So clearly there are some bitter and twisted individuals out there that when bad things happen think that that's an excuse almost to go and commit even further bad things against other fellow human beings. The police spikes that they've seen have been considerable. Multiples of 4 or 5 or 6 times more of these types of crimes after them. If there's a chink of light, it's that a month or 2 after these spikes, the numbers appear to have settled down. But that, of course, comes as no consolation whatsoever to the victims of those crimes.
So what do we do about this? I mean, you've worked in the police force. What are the police thinking? How do we proceed from here?
Well, unfortunately, in recent decades, the police have really downgraded the gathering of local intelligence. It's what the police used to do, was keep their ear close to the ground, know what was going on, have real firm links with communities so they could gauge the temperature of discontent where it was to arise. That's been watered down in recent years, almost to the point of being non-existent in some places. But I would urge modern British contemporary policing to once again revisit and appreciate the value of knowing what is going on in your local community. By that, I don't mean specify particular communities for special treatment and special links and attention, but just keep your ear to the ground. Because if you deal with everybody who's a victim of crime, they come from every walk of life, faith, colour, creed, sexuality, religion, and the such like. And if you try and catch the criminals who commit those crimes, likewise, they tend to be representative of every kind of group in the community. Know what's going on, you hear what the rumours are, you can act upon them, and sometimes you can minimise the spikes in these kind of unacceptable crimes.
But who would want to be a police officer these days, though? You know, especially when it feels like the government or the people that are supposed to back you don't back you. So, for example, in the Chris Clubber case, that police officer, he was named by the judge as if it was OK for him to be named, which, you know, would obviously then suddenly there's a target on his back. And the police are scared to act, you know, in cases like Rotherham. They're scared because they don't want to be seen as racist. So they don't do what they're meant to be doing because they know they'll be in trouble. So all of these spikes in racial attacks, I mean, they can all be explained by the situations that have occurred over time. But the question is, who would want that job anyway?
If you could grant me the next 2 hours of this show, I could get somewhat close to actually nailing that answer.
Yeah.
But, unfortunately, and I'll be as brief as I can, senior policing in the last couple of decades or more has come under the spell or fallen into the grip of academia. Senior police officers are obsessed by having letters after their names, getting those degrees, those doctorates and the such like. And, of course, universities, so many of them have policing departments with doctors and professors of policing, and the most those people have ever risked in their life is getting a paper cut, and yet they have the ear of senior police. Until the police service gets a firm grip on the fact that it needs to be of the people, for the people, and you can sling most of your academia out of the window, then I'm afraid the catastrophic state that British policing is in is merely going to continue, and I say that with the heaviest of hearts.
Because it seems that the eyes are on the police. The eyes are on the police all the time. So even with the attack at Manchester Airport, if it hadn't been for Reform UK backing those officers and creating a bit of a furore around it, those officers may well have been heavily scrutinised, even though we could all see that they themselves were being under attack. So what I see is that nobody really wants to do this job because at the end of the day, you'll be the victim of it.
Once again, the problems exist in the corridors of policing power. There was no doubt whatsoever that with the Manchester Airport attack, for example, OK, the police tried to suppress the truth. In fact, we know an investigation was launched into who released the video that showed the backstory to the police officer stamping video, of which we only ever got to see 3 or 4 seconds in the very early days. This once again just, I think, echoes what I'm saying, that they have fallen into this world where perception is more important than policing. And that's what these senior police officers are so concerned about. Ignore the perception, ignore the front pages, get a police service fit for purpose that provides a service to the public and really communicates with two communities, those who are victims of crime, and guess what? Those who commit crime. Get out there and nick them.
And it's social media as well, isn't it, that's creating this?
Yeah, everyone's got a camera.
Yeah, they're worried about the perception, as you say, more than they're doing the necessary hard work. They're worried about making the wrong choice and then being exposed on Twitter or X, whatever it is.
And because they're so worried about making the wrong choice, guess what? They go ahead and make the wrong choice. Ignore all that noise. It's irrelevant. What some nobody who is sitting in the spare bedroom of his parents' house whilst aged 45 then types on social media is of no relevance or importance to the police officers, the courageous men and women who are going out there on the front line, facing violence and unpleasantness every day, saving lives, trying to preserve life and trying to lock up bad people.
Yeah, but the thing is, though, they don't even sometimes have the support of the court system, as we saw with Chris Cubber. You see what I mean? So...
No, please, may I interrupt there, Nana? Please forgive me, OK? A court heard that evidence and a jury resoundingly, quickly acquitted NX121 of the charge of murder. The court supported him. The fact that a judge named him...
That's what I mean.
Yes. But at some stage in the future, I'm sure that officer will be able to get on with his life. Fortunately, the Met Police have promoted him because he's qualified for promotion. They immediately lifted his suspension. They've promoted him, and I'm sure he'll be surrounded by some good people, I hope, that will enable him to carry on his marvellous career of dedicated public service.
Yeah, well, the fact he had to go through that is another thing. But Peter Blexley, always a pleasure. Thank you very much for joining us.
Right, well, let's find out if we're going to need an umbrella for New Year's. Let's get your weather update with Greg Dewhurst.
Heavy showers first thing will be followed by a warm, cosy day. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast. Low pressure systems brings an unsettled end to 2024 and a very unsettled start to the new year as well, as wind, rain and snow feature in the forecast. Rain and snow already across Scotland this morning, continuing through the day. Some local disruption here with Met Office warnings in force. The wind's also picking up across parts of the north, particularly northern England, with gusts of 50 to 60 miles an hour. A wind warning in force here through the day. Generally cloudy though, further south and breezy, some bright spells at times, but the cloud thick enough for 1 or 2 spots of rain, and temperatures on the mild side generally reaching 9 or 10 Celsius. A brief respite in the rain and snow for a time across Scotland this evening, but it won't be long before further rain and snow pushes back in here with some disruption. Rainfall totals building through the next 24 hours, over 100 millimetres in places. Still breezy across Northern Ireland, southern Scotland, northern England with outbreaks of rain here, but generally a drier picture for the rest of England and Wales. They're rather cloudy, the cloud thick enough for a few spots of drizzle, but on the mild side to end the day. And you can see there further rain and snow across Scotland to end the day and take us into the early hours. Generally cloudy and breezy elsewhere. The band of rain pushing into Northern Ireland, southern Scotland, northern England as we head overnight. And temperatures with the winds coming in from the southwest holding up, generally 7 to 10 Celsius. For many though, cold air across northern Scotland here will temperatures starting the day around 1 or 2 Celsius, snow and rain in places. And then this band of rain just slowly pushes its way southwards New Year's Eve morning time. Some strong winds developing too. Further Met Office warnings in force as low pressure really dominates, staying dry across some southern counties of England, but often cloudy. Here, mild temperatures around 11 or 12 Celsius, starting to turn colder and staying unsettled into New Year's Day.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good morning, 22 minutes after 7 o'clock. Still to come, Labour looks to diversify the national curriculum. But what exactly has Bridget Phillipson got up her sleeve? This is GB News Breakfast with Adam and Nana.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Sunday with Michael Portillo from 11, only on GB News.
Penelope's, which is situated in the sophisticated Hotel Armano in Covent Garden, delivers punchy dishes from the executive chefs Fez Ozalgan. London-born, she's of Turkish Cypriot heritage, and at the tender age of 16, she enrolled at catering college. So, it's lovely to see you, Fez. Welcome to the programme.
Thank you.
So you're now in a very prestigious position. I'm always impressed that in the world of chefing, it's possible to get to very senior positions quite young, if you're good enough. Talent is rewarded, is it not?
Definitely, yeah. It does take a lot of hard work, for sure. But, yes.
When did you know that you wanted to be a chef?
Honestly, because my parents have a cafe in Barking, and I used to go there when I was younger in school holidays and weekends to help them. And actually, I'll be honest, I just used to really admire everyone calling my dad chef, and that's what I wanted.
And what about your food inspirations? Because I believe the food that you produce now is what? Mediterranean influenced and also to some extent Middle East influenced?
Yeah, and Spanish as well at Penelope's, yeah. So our concept at Penelope's, our CEO, Ariel, he is Israeli, but he grew up in Marbella. So, yeah.
These are the great influences.
Yeah.
What have you brought here today?
OK, so we have our sea bream tartare, which is a really good inspiration of both Spanish and Israeli. It's marinated with harissa, and it's served with a really nice gazpacho sauce, caviar on top.
I wonder whether the camera can see that. It is the most gorgeous coloured sauce on top of my sea bream tartare. That's marvellous.
GB News, the People's Channel.
the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. Now, a TikToker who went viral teaching science videos predicts short-form video will make its way into the national curriculum.
27-year-old Emmanuel Wallace, a.k.a. Big Mammy, by his 1.9 million followers, believes that his unconventional teaching methods will help to make the content relatable for younger audiences. Well, we're joined now by the head teacher of LBS Ascot, Christine Knief. Christine, welcome. Really good to talk to you. Happy Christmas to you.
Merry Christmas.
I want to ask you about this because Labour are planning a sort of to diversify the national curriculum, which is what they're saying. This is a TikToker trying to make things more relatable. Have Labour got a point? In your view, does the curriculum need decolonisation to avoid monoculturalism, which I think is what they were talking about, if that makes sense?
I think I'd always be worried about diversifying the curriculum. I think the curriculum does need to change and adapt to be more 21st century, and I think embrace the way all children learn. But I would be very worried about the word diversity. What do they actually mean by that, and what does it look like? What are the plans? I mean, we haven't seen the plans, so we can't really, comment on them at the moment.
Well, one of the things they said, now I'll quote it to you because I think it's at the Telegraph, they had a sneaky peek at some of the things, and it was to decolonise subjects that have been branded too monocultural. Sorry, It just doesn't mean anything to me. Christine, what does that mean to you?
I had a comment from Dawn earlier about you can't change what's happened. Let's talk about what was wrong. And let's move forward, and let's just we've got to be global in our outlook. We can't change what's happened already. We can change the future, but without losing the values and the cultures of different countries and cultures across the world. It's about mutual respect and learning about each other, so we actually, the world can actually get on a bit better than it does right now.
See, because I don't really know what decolonise really means when they're saying decolonise a curriculum.
An entire curriculum.
What does that mean when you're teaching slavery? Does it mean what bits are you missing bits out?
Maths, I don't know.
I just don't get it, yeah. Christine. You're a teacher. You've got experience of this. If someone says they're going to decolonise a curriculum, what would you understand that to mean?
Well, I don't really understand it, if I'm really honest with you. I must admit, I am a music teacher, so maybe it might just go right across over my head. But I don't know what it means. Come on, let's clarify this. Are we skirting around an issue here? Let's put it down. What do we actually mean by this? And let's just get it right for the kids. Let's go away from big terms and, things that are favourable, today. And let's just get a curriculum that's fit for purpose for these children. We're wasting time talking about it. Let's just get on with it.
Christine, let's talk about Big Manny. What do you make of this? Do we need TikTok to be introduced into the curriculum? Is this a good way of teaching kids?
It's already there.
Yeah, I tell you what, I think he is fantastic. I think what he's doing is amazing because he's engaging children. There's so many children that are not engaged in education, and then we wonder why they don't go to school. So if we've got people like Big Manny who've got content out there that really reaches people, and short form content is not new. There's lots of things out there for everybody, no matter what you do. And if it engages you and brings you into the world of education and all the wonders of it, then anybody like him who's doing that is just needs to be celebrated. Well done to him, intelligent young man who's engaging with young people.
In a way, it is good because everyone has a different learning style. And I think sometimes the curriculum is very guilty of only having one particular style of learning, in which if you're not good at that sort of style and it doesn't work for you, then you end up not doing so well. But there is a fear of TikTok, though, because whilst you're searching for Big Mammy, you will come across other things, and that's a problem, isn't it, surely?
Yeah, it is, but it's all about online education as well. And most schools have got very good online education programs, and children need to know what the dangers are as well. And parents need to be, make sure that when your children are online at home, that you've got the relevant filters and that you are keeping an eye on what your children are doing. Some great stuff, but as you say, there's always dangers. But what it does is it does highlight, as you've just said, we've always taught in classrooms, talking, or hopefully not at children. It's more engaging now than it used to be when I was at school. But we don't all learn the same way. And those bite-sized pieces of information can be so powerful, and they could lead you to skills and a career that you might not have even thought of.
Yeah. That might be true, Christine, but is there not also a danger that the children become too reliant on this short-form content and are now reluctant to do the deeper reading that is necessary as they get a little bit older? Exactly.
And concentration, because they have done studies, haven't they, found that children now can only, you can do bite-sized bits because you've been watching things for only a short thing, but then you lose your sort of ability to sustain your focus on any particular subject.
There is a balance, but I think what we've got to remember, this isn't new. I can remember doing a postgraduate degree where I really didn't understand some things, and I went and sought that kind of material myself. And then you get the grasp of it, and then your course, your GCSEs, your A-level, your degree will then ensure that you're looking further and you are developing those skills because they haven't disappeared from the curriculum.
All right, well, listen, I find it all fascinating. Yeah. I would like to ask Bridget Phillipson herself what she means by decolonisation in the curriculum. I don't think she's thought it through, but Christine Knof, thank you very much. Really good to talk to you. Thank you.
Now, if you didn't get everything on your Christmas list this year, how about £50,000 in tax-free cash in the new year?
Now, it could really all be yours in our biggest ever Great British giveaway. Here are all the details that you need to enter.
There's still plenty of time to grab your chance to win our biggest cash prize ever, an incredible £50,000. What would you spend £50,000 on in the coming year? Spectacular holidays, a brand new car, home improvements, or maybe you'd just like to save it for a special occasion? For another chance to win, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. You can call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB10 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 31st of January. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Good luck indeed. But with 2025 just around the corner today, at GB News, we're saying thank you, and we're sending our viewers a very special message. Have a listen.
Thank you, Britain.
Thank you for watching.
Thank you for listening.
Thanks for subscribing.
Thank you for your support.
It's you that make us the People's Channel.
As we reflect on our journey so far, we're filled with immense gratitude.
You mean the world to us. We couldn't have reached this point without you.
As a very special thank you, we are giving you the chance to win one of 50 GB News thank you boxes. They're worth £50 each.
For full terms and conditions, and to enter, just go to gbnews.com/thank you.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. Buses replaced Tyne and Wear metro services between Heworth and Monument because of emergency engineering works in North Yorkshire. The A64 is closed eastbound south of York from the Cotmanthorpe roundabout to the A19 at the Fulford interchange after an accident last night. The Port of Holyhead remains closed for repairs, damage caused by Storm Dara earlier this month. Sailing still suspended between Holyhead and Dublin. Trains aren't running into and out of Liverpool Street Station in London again today because of engineering works, and there's disruption to some departures at Gatwick Airport after the fog yesterday. You see some flights cancelled, some others delayed by up to 2 hours, though arrivals are mostly unaffected. And that's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
Headliners. Tomorrow's papers tonight, every night from 11 p.m.
The Daily Mail now, Josh, and pub landlords have to worry about more than the optics when it comes to offensive banter,
This is a really big story and important. Pub landlords could have to become banter cops to stop themselves being sued by staff offended by comments from customers under workers' rights reform. So, Labour, when they were part of their election process, they were like, we're going to reform workers' rights, and that all sounds good on paper, but there were issues in terms of how might it affect employees and fear from employees costing them more money. One of these things that they're sort of pushing through, though, is that in the Equality Act of 2010, part of the issue was that if you were offended at work or someone said something sexist or racist, something that affected you, the employer had to take some sort of... they had three chances to kind of take action. Now, the employer has to should have taken action already. So employees can sue employers. Now, this has a big impact on us because we're comics and we perform in venues. And if some of the bar staff hear a joke that they don't like, then they can sue their employer, potentially, under this legislation. So
it's not punters?
Well, also, it could be like you're at a bar and some bloke is like, oh, I like that top, or whatever. That's not good behaviour. But the point is now that employee could sue their employer.
So, because, I mean, the sort of scenario I was imagining was that a barmaid was being maybe sexually harassed or
That's
something.
what they're focusing in this article, but other articles have gone down the free speech route. And also venues and universities having lectures. We saw it, in Edinburgh Fringe Festival and Sadowitz. He had a show cancelled not because of any punters, but because two of the 18-year-olds were working. They were upset.
There was a bar in Brighton, wasn't there? There was a story we covered a few weeks ago. A bar in Brighton threw some people out. Because
They had turfs on the...
turfs. GB News, the People's Channel.
Back now, it's time to go through all the latest sports news. Aidan McGee is with us here to chat through it. What have we got, Aidan?
Only one place to start, and that is the magnificent Ali Pali in North London. The darts last night. What a performance by Peter Wright. There is life in the old dog. You know what? He was involved in some verbal jousting with the current champion, Luke Humphries. Luke Humphries was sailing on nicely in this tournament. All the pressure, all this focus was on his rival, Luke Littler, who he beat in the final last year. It looked as if he was going to march through to the final. He comes up against this old dog. I say old dog. I don't know what his actual real name is. I'm just calling him an old dog because he's 54 and he's a lot older than Luke Humphries. But they get involved in this spat beforehand in the press conference.
54 isn't old, by the way.
No, it's not. Absolutely not.
Old dog.
Yeah.
Hold on a minute, buddy.
Sorry.
Careful.
Sorry. I'm a bit rough on him. No. Very good. So anyway, there's this press conference beforehand, and he says, he starts getting inside Luke Humphries' head. Luke Humphries bites. This is probably where his inexperience comes in, because he says, well, I'm only one world title away from matching his entire career, and I'm nearly 30 years younger than him. So, ouch. And then last night, Peter Wright responds in front of a 6,000 crowd at Ali Pali, in front of the lights, in front of all the pressure, managing all the pressure, and he turns him over 4-1. And afterwards, a bit of an embrace afterwards. And it just shows, in top-level sport, this guy, Peter Wright, was no mug. He's won 2 world titles in recent years. He's had an awful year. He finished bottom of the Premier League, which nobody expected. But when it mattered, the pedigree was there, and it came out in spades last night because he dumped out this. Well, he's a world champion. I expected him to at least get to the final, if not go and win it. And so, a great story there from the darts. We've got Luke Littler in action tonight against Ryan Joyce. I think it's 9:45. We've got the final on January the 3rd. And I'll tell you what, this is a sport like no other in terms of the resurgence it's experienced in recent years. It's going great guns. It's absolutely flying.
Yeah, I can imagine it was great back in the day, obviously, when I was a lot younger.
Yeah.
54 ain't that old, by the way, my friend.
No, it's not. I know you've made that point twice.
Darts, you'd be, holding a pint and a fag in the hand.
That still goes on.
No, but they'd be like holding the pint in one hand with the fag between the fingers and the other hand free to chuck the dart.
Love it.
Do you know what I mean?
I know.
Like smoky.
Rockstar, showbiz.
I know.
And I thought it was great fun.
It was brilliant. Well, that was when it was great. It was getting the numbers at that time. In common with snooker as well. We talked in the last hour, didn't we, about the 22 million audience when Steve Davis went up against Dennis Taylor back in 1985, 1 in the morning. And
I
those
can
were the
believe
kind
that.
of numbers. There's different. There were only 4 channels back then.
But you were saying snooker needs a bit of that showbiz.
Oh, without doubt. without doubt. It needs a bit of stardust. It's been very resistant to that kind of those dynamics in the last 20 years. Cricket to some degree as well. You speak to anyone who's involved in this type of thing, the promoters, and they know what they want to do with snooker and pool. Pool, not so much. So that's kind of an American game anyway. Yeah. But so it's been allowed to be sort of, it's more malleable in terms of what they can do with it. But if you want to get on TV, if you want to attract a younger audience, you can't stay standing still. That's for sure.
Yeah. What's going on with the football?
Well, look, we're going to park Liverpool and West Ham for now because I don't want to hurt Dawn Neeson anymore. Liverpool are top of the league with
we'll
8 points. Yeah, please do. But Man City finally got a win. I think, well, it was the second win in 14 matches. This is the side who won the treble 18 months ago. They won the league last year. They have dropped off in spectacular fashion. Leicester, I mean, who are in the bottom three, by the way, they should have won that, Man City, but Leicester gave them a bit of a going over. Man City prevailed. Erling Haaland scoring. Southampton losing it. Crystal Palace now. Southampton have got 6 points on the board. And the record low for a Premier League side in a season is 10. I was there when it was actually set. It was Derby County in 2008 at Blackburn Rovers, rather appropriately. And Derby County wore an all-black kit on the day, and that record low points total has never been surpassed. I think he might be in danger now. And this manager, Russell Martin, who lost his job a couple of weeks ago, came up from the Championship, adhering to all these woke principles. And I wonder how the owners are thinking right now, because they're staring down the barrel at relegation. That's going to cost them £100 million.
These people get so much money anyway. This is ridiculous.
Which people?
These footballers,
managers. It's not ridiculous. They earn it. They earn it. The market says they get it, and this. The
market's wrong.
It's not. The market's not wrong because the market is dictated by demand. If demand is there, the market will respond by paying that money. It's as simple as that, and they're going to get more.
I don't think
lefty of you now.
You may not think it. You may not think it.
This is not a left perspective. I think a lot of people who go to matches who spend a fortune and so on see these footballers earning £400,000 a week,
and they buy more tickets and go again the next week.
Absolutely absurd.
It might be absurd, but they still go. They still go. You might not do it, but a lot of people out there do. And if Arsenal said to me, it was the chairman of Arsenal said to me about 12 years ago, he said, I've got 8 people waiting for every one seat in the stadium.
Sort it out. Well, it should be a lot cheaper than that, especially to watch Arsenal.
I think they should reduce
West
it.
Ham, yeah. Or West Ham, even.
I think they should reduce it. They can do.
Anyway,
I've got wraps.
There we go. Aidan, thank you very much. Now, if you are in search of some winter sun, here is the forecast for some of the top European holiday destinations.
Ready to soak up that holiday sunshine?
Won't we need some cover?
No worries. All sorted.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hello there. Conditions slowly improving across the far east of the Mediterranean, but the risk of showers across southern parts of Spain over the next 24 hours. Low pressure starting to pull away, but still the risk of some heavy showers for Cyprus, but generally dry across Greece, across into Italy. Sunny spells here, temperatures around average for the time of year, but the risk of some showers across southern Spain, and generally dry as well towards Tenerife there, reaching 20 Celsius. Generally dry for the next few days, best of the sunshine towards eastern parts. See you.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Well, stay with us. Still to come, we'll be going through today's top stories with Dawn Neeson and Norman Baker in Making the News. That is next. This is GB News Breakfast with Adam and Nana.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, Will, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
3 incredible young people from Essex are planning to become the youngest people ever to row, not sail, row, across the Atlantic Ocean.
That's about for 3,000 miles?
It is.
Give or take.
Almost exactly that, Sam.
The 3 flying fish, so-called, consists of Anna, Dunk, Harry, Alan and Rowan Daly, who are preparing to row that 3,000 miles across the Atlantic. It would be the 2nd largest ocean in the world, and the trio are aiming to do that challenge in support of the Teenage Cancer Trust.
Well, I'm very pleased to say that Anna and Harry from the Flying Fish join us now. Very good morning to both of you.
Guys.
Morning. I think the 2 of you are bonkers, but brilliant. Absolutely incredible what you're doing to raise money for Teenage Cancer Trust. Why did you want to do this?
So
our third person, Rowan, his friend actually died. So when he was in secondary school, I believe, one of his peers passed away, and Teenage Cancer supported them and their family a lot. So it was definitely the right charity. Yeah, it was.
Absolutely awful. So you wanted to do something to raise money for teenage cancer. Why rowing?
So my dad did it in 2021.
The Atlantic trip?
Yeah, he rowed it as a pair. Where we live in Essex, they actually build the boats there. So we used to cycle round there past the boatyard, and he got interested and actually did it. He was the first year after COVID. And one night, we all met in the Air Cadets, so one night after Air Cadets, Rowan actually dropped me off home and the boat was outside. We were obviously waiting to get it sold. And I think he was asking some questions, and we stood there at my porch and went, Rowan said, I reckon we could do that. And I was like, yeah, I reckon we could. And then we brought Harry on board, and that's kind of how it all came together.
If people are watching and they want to support you, do you have a
Yeah, we've
GoFundMe
got
page
social
yet?
media platforms at
Right.
The Free Flying Fish. That's Facebook, Instagram and TikTok, and our GoFundMe links in all of the bios on there.
Fantastic.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back now. Joining us to go through what's making the news is former editor at the Daily Star, Dawn Neeson, and former Lib Dem Minister Norman Baker. Right.
Let's start with this one. Letting Shamima Begum return to the UK would open the door to extremists. Dawn Neeson.
Yeah, this is one of those stories that's just not going to go away, is it? After the fall of Syrian dictator Bashar al-Assad, Shamima Begum's lawyer has got excited that Shamima, who is currently in a detention camp out there, will be free to come back. However, a security source is saying that if Shamima is allowed back, it could open the floodgates to 100 others that are out there. And the security services are keeping tabs on people in the Syrian camps who were the claim to citizen in the UK. And they are saying they all want to come back. And we just do not have the resources to keep track on people if we do let them back into the country. Now, I can't remember which Home Secretary it was, actually said that Shamima is a security arrest to this country.
Sajid Javid.
Yes, I can't really... There's been so many recently,
I know, haven't there? Well, there were 8 under the Conservatives.
Exactly, that's what I mean. But they're saying, it was decided she couldn't come back, but now, obviously, Syria has changed the situation, and her lawyers are probably going to launch another appeal to try and get her back into the country.
Sake. I mean, look, Norman Baker, should she be allowed to return to this country? She's lost her citizenship. She shouldn't be, in my view, but what do you think?
Well, probably not, but I think the point Dawn made, which is the most important point, is that it takes a huge amount of manpower to keep track on one individual, and the security services will have a list of people you need to keep an eye on, of extremists from right and left across the country, people like this, and they can't simply do it all. And, the old saying is, you can stop a terrorist 99 times out of 100, but the one time out of 100 you don't stop them, and that causes a major incident.
But if she gets here, just say via a small boat, which seems to be the way everyone's getting here, if she gets here via a small boat, we can't send her back because there's nowhere to send her to because she's kind of stateless, isn't she, at the moment?
Well, she is stateless, and that's another issue about people who are stateless. But obviously Syria is now in a state of flux after Assad has gone. It's not quite clear what the new government now will look like. It may be that they're going to be a rather better government than Assad. They're starting OK, as a matter of fact, but we don't know that, and there's a whole lot of fighting going on in different parts of Syria, so the place is not stable.
What do Labour make of this? Where does this go next, in your view?
Well, I mean, the Labour, they want to keep quiet, I think. They want to keep their heads down, probably, and say nothing.
Well, yeah. I mean, the thing is with this, in theory, if she and the other 100 that are out there does come back, it's the monitoring of them. I mean, and they go through the whole prevent process. It's called prevent, isn't it? Where we de-radicalise them. But we've already had so many incidents in this country where people on this programme have gone on to commit atrocities. I mean, the Westminster Bridge attacker, he was being monitored. And it's just, we can't keep track of them, so they're safer out there.
Well, or in prison. If she comes here, could she be then put in prison for war crimes or something?
Well, you have to be charged and go through a proper legal process,
Well, but
We also don't have the spaces, do we?
Yeah, I was going to say, ignoring the fact that we don't have any prison spaces.
We do in Category D, open prisons.
Lovely.
And 1,000 of those.
Yeah.
No, I don't get it. I don't get it. I think we need to be much more, much sharper with policing our borders. But I think it kind of brings us on to this particular story, because the Home Office is spending £15 million on satellites to track migrants attempting to cross the Channel, and government contracts.
This is another story that I think will really annoy people this morning. As you said, Nana, 15 million on satellites tracking migrants attempting to cross the Channel. And new government contracts have been revealed. That's what our Home Secretary Yvette Cooper's department is spending. However, track them, and stats show we've already had 36,204 migrants arrive in the UK so far this year. It's like, hold on a minute, well, you're going to track them, but what are you going to do with them?
Yeah.
What's the point of you tracking them and then just ushering them into the country, which is what we're going to do?
Can't you have something?
It's not going to stop them.
It's absurd, isn't it? Norman Baker.
If you're going to track them, you have to track them before they get on the boat and then negotiate with the French to make sure they don't leave the country. I mean, that's what you have to do. Once you've left the Channel, once we've started to cross the Channel, it's too late. You can track them as much as you want, it doesn't stop anything else. So it seems to me probably a bit of waste of money.
Well, isn't it a start, though? You can track them, so then you can maybe trace them, but then we saw what happened with track and trace. I think it's 39 billion, wasn't it?
That's not going there.
Yeah.
Nobody knows where it's gone.
The thing is, Norman, you mentioned France, aren't we? We're sending a few £100 million to France already to try and solve this problem, aren't we?
Well, we are, and of course, I think the French do have an impact of sorts, but the reality is that people do get across the Channel. I always make the point, however, on GB News and anywhere else for that matter, that the number of people who come across the Channel, it's a very small proportion of those who come in legally every year.
Yes.
1 million or whatever was the net figure last year.
Well, yeah, I get that, and we are. A lot of people are apoplectic with rage after the numbers that the Conservatives enabled to come to this country in terms of legal migration.
Oh, yeah.
But it's actually more irritating the illegal migration, because we then have to specifically house these people and specifically look after their interests and specifically pay all the legal appeals and everything else like that.
Yeah, well, since it started now, that's 150,000 crossings from France since records began in 2018, which is basically a town the size of Blackpool.
Yeah.
And, as much as people try and say, oh, well, these people are fleeing terror and torture, and their families, and we should help them, most of them, we're honest, are young men of fighting age. And there's an awful lot of them over here now.
Economic migrants, some would say. What about this, Norman? This is an interesting story. They're apparently, we're soon going to be ending barcodes.
Yes, it is an interesting story. It's in the Mail today on page 3. And barcodes have been around since, do you know what year?
1979. I'm going to say.
Yeah, you're about right, actually, 74. And the first ever product with a barcode was Juicy Fruit gum.
Oh, was it?
It was.
They still do that.
They still do it, I think. So, yes, and first used in this country on tea bags in Lincolnshire. It's a fascinating story. And do you know what barcodes actually do? They hold information, 7 pieces of information: the product's name, the manufacturer, the type, the size, the weight, the colour, and the price. So they're quite useful. But QR codes could hold much more information, such as ingredients, allergens, even recipe suggestions. So barcodes are going to be on the way out, and we're going to have QR codes instead coming in.
That's good. Good bit of technology there.
Well, you know what? I mean, I'm still struggling with barcodes on those scanning things, the self-scan things, and I can never get it right. I can never get it scanned. I'm waving it at the wrong bit of glass, and so the likelihood of me coping with QR codes is not going to happen, to be honest with you.
Should we finish on this Lego stories? The Seas continue to give up hundreds of Lego treasures.
This is because, this is another interesting story here in the papers. 27 years ago, a cargo ship was lost because of a freak wave, lost 62 containers containing Lego bricks, and they lost 4,756,940 pieces of Lego, and it keeps coming up on being caught by fishermen and everything else off the south coast.
Are they in boxes or just bits of Lego
floating around? Well, just bits, I think, because the most recent delivery is a Lego shark, which has been found. And, 51,800 fell into the ocean, and one was discovered by fisherman Richard West. Good luck to him from Plymouth.
So is it valuable?
Well, apparently it is, because Lego sharks are quite collectible, apparently.
Right, so they don't make them anymore. So if you get one dredged up from the ocean, then it's quite collectible.
But he said I could tell right away what it was. I wouldn't know what a Lego shark was, personally.
You always know about it when you're treading it, Lego.
Well, that happened, it happened almost 28 years ago, and they're still finding bits and pieces.
Yes.
Unbelievable.
It's not deteriorated.
Well, it's like that container ship that went down carrying carrying a load of rubber ducks. Remember that story?
Yeah.
And all the little rubber ducks were sailing around the world, and then they'd rock up in really
What a great image.
peculiar places.
Some of these Lego bricks have been found in Norway, so they've gone quite a long way as well.
Norway.
The journey. Yeah.
This is a real silly season story, though, isn't it? I mean, in the summer we have real live sharks off the coast of the UK, and now we have Lego sharks.
Well, Lego sharks are less damaging, I think.
Slightly less dangerous.
Well, I don't know. I think the Lego would probably be very damaging to the animals. I feel sorry for them if that's been...
Oh, it's true, yeah, to other animals.
Yeah, that's
but it's less
true.
damaging to humans than a real shark.
Well, as Nana said, if you tread on one,
Yeah,
it's a Lego.
A bit Lego. You know about it. I've got children. I know all about that.
Exactly.
Dawn Neeson, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And also Norman Baker, really good to talk to you. We'll see you again, won't we?
You will,
Oh, yes.
yeah.
In an hour.
They'll be back.
Right, it's time to get an update with your weather with Greg Dewhurst. Don't go anywhere.
Despite the morning rain, it'll be a nice, warm, cosy day ahead. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, welcome to our latest GB News weather forecast. Low pressure systems brings an unsettled end to 2024 and a very unsettled start to the new year as well, as wind, rain and snow feature in the forecast. Rain and snow already across Scotland this morning, continuing through the day. Some local disruption here with Met Office warnings in force. The wind's also picking up across parts of the north, particularly northern England, with gusts of 50 to 60 miles an hour. A wind warning in force here through the day. Generally cloudy though, further south, and breezy, some bright spells at times, but the cloud thick enough for 1 or 2 spots of rain, and temperatures on the mild side generally reaching 9 or 10 Celsius. A brief respite in the rain and snow for a time across Scotland this evening, but it won't be long before further rain and snow pushes back in here with some disruption. Rainfall totals building through the next 24 hours, over 100 millimetres in places. Still breezy across Northern Ireland, southern Scotland, northern England with outbreaks of rain here, but generally a drier picture for the rest of England and Wales. They're rather cloudy, the cloud thick enough for a few spots of drizzle, but on the mild side to end the day. And you can see there further rain and snow across Scotland to end the day and take us into the early hours. Generally cloudy and breezy elsewhere. The band of rain pushing into Northern Ireland, southern Scotland, northern England as we head overnight. And temperatures with the winds coming in from the southwest holding up generally 7 to 10 Celsius. For many, though, cold air across northern Scotland here will temperatures starting the day around 1 or 2 Celsius, snow and rain in places. And then this band of rain just slowly pushes its way southwards New Year's Eve morning time. Some strong winds developing too. Further Met Office warnings in force as low pressure really dominates, staying dry across some southern counties of England, but often cloudy. Here, mild temperatures around 11 or 12 Celsius, starting to turn colder and staying unsettled into New Year's Day.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding in Londonderry on the A515. The Foyle Bridge is closed each way to high-sided vehicles because of strong winds. Buses replace Tyne and Wear Metro services between Heworth and Monument for emergency engineering works. In North Yorkshire, the A64 is closed eastbound south of York from the Cottonthorpe roundabout to the A19 at the Fulford interchange after an accident last night. The Port of Holyhead remains closed for repairs. Sailing still suspended between Holyhead and Dublin. Trains aren't running into and out of Liverpool Street Station in London again today because of engineering works, and there's some disruption to departures at Gatwick Airport after the fog yesterday, seeing some cancelled flights, some others delayed by up to half an hour, though arrivals are mostly unaffected. That's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website gbnews.com.
You could be joining the Great British Giveaway list of winners with your chance to grab a fantastic £50,000 in tax-free cash.
My name is Cliff. And my name is Julie. And we won $25,000. I'd say don't hesitate, do it. If you're not in it, you've got no chance of winning it.
For another chance to win, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. You can call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB10 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 31st of January. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/your say. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Very good morning. The blame game.
The government says smuggling gangs are responsible for deaths in the English Channel.
3 migrants died off the coast of France on Sunday morning after a boat of 60 people capsized. And America is in mourning as former US President Jimmy Carter has died at the age of 100.
Joe Biden praised the one-term 39th president as a man of principle, faith and humility, while Donald Trump stated Americans owe him a debt of gratitude.
And King Charles and the Prime Minister Keir Starmer have paid tribute to those who lost their lives in a plane crash in South Korea on Sunday.
Tours, trials and triumphs, how Harry and Meghan fared in 2024.
Good morning. Liverpool extended their lead at the top of the Premier League with an irresistible performance at the London Stadium in their 5-0 demolition of West Ham United. And there was a big upset at the PDC World Darts Championship. Reigning champion Luke Humphries is out at the Ali Pali.
Low pressure dominating the end of 2024 and taking us into the new year as well. Met Office warnings out for wind, rain and snow. Let's find out all the details coming up in the programme soon.
It's just gone 8 o'clock. I'm Adam Cherry.
I'm Nana Akweer, and this is GB News Breakfast. Well, Christmas. We're in Twixmas now. There's bit in the middle.
Yeah. Crimbo Limbo, wasn't it?
Crimbo Limbo or Twixmas.
It's where everyone just drinks a load of brandy and cheese and crackers. You know what? I'm just getting into my cheese and crackers. Absolutely
I had some last night, actually.
Did you?
Yeah, well, I'm type 1 diabetic. It's a good thing for me to have because it's slowly...
Is it?
Yes,
Did
slowly.
you have nightmares afterwards? Apparently you should never eat cheese before bed.
I had some very pleasant dreams, actually.
Wow.
Yeah,
Some very...
less of that.
I had some very mature dreams.
I'm not liking where we're going in this direction.
Anyway, yeah.
I think we'll move on.
Well, I honestly was not expecting it to go like that. OK, there we go.
It's fine.
It never does. Well, good morning if you've just joined us. Lots on the news agenda. French authorities confirmed 3 deaths yesterday morning following an incident off the coast of Sangatte, that is near Calais, in which 45 people were rescued after struggling to board a small boat bound for the UK.
Border Security and Asylum Minister Dame Angela Eagles said that ruthless criminals were responsible for overloading the boats.
Although, if you look at it, the smugglers, those who got on the boats must take some responsibility. Who do you blame? We spoke to the deputy editor of Spiked, Fraser Myers, earlier.
Starmer's policy is to smash the gangs, but it looks like the gangs are smashing Starmer, unfortunately. I think the issue here is that we all want to see enforcement of the law. We all want to see these criminal gangs brought to boot, but there doesn't seem to be any other policy on the other end that is essentially reducing the incentive to come over. I think, unfortunately, you know, tragedies like this happen because people know that if they come to Britain, there is next to zero chance of them being deported. Even if they have an asylum claim denied, they will probably just be absorbed into the black economy. Even if they commit sometimes horrendous crimes, they might not be deported, whether on human rights grounds, under our own laws, or due to the ECHR. So the incentives there are so strong for people to come over illegally. There is essentially there's nothing saying you can't come. And that's something that Keir Starmer and the Labour Party are not really interested in dealing with, because they see, and it's true, many people are genuine asylum seekers and refugees, but 100% of them are not, and essentially they treat everyone as that, and they see this dichotomy between, well, it's just the evil smuggling gangs, you know, exploiting people, exploiting helpless people. That may be true in a lot of circumstances, but it's not true in all circumstances, and until that distinction is made more clear.
Do you know, I'm absolutely sick of this. I think, I don't know why they haven't got a handle on it. It seems pretty obvious to me. Those boats would be, if I were in charge, those boats would be stopped. If it would require me to get out the ECHR, then I would do that if it meant that would happen, because people are dying. So what is the solution? Would Rwanda have worked? And should we be leaving the ECHR to make this...
I think we will have to leave. I think we do have to leave the ECHR. I think we've got to the situation where, I mean, there's been some incredibly bizarre cases this year where even people who, you know, any sane person would say they should be deported. So recently there was a Congolese man who sexually assaulted his own stepdaughter, but was allowed to stay in the UK on the grounds of his right to a family life. Now, this is the same family that he is, you know, terrorising, and he has to stay in the UK on those grounds. So, being in the ECHR, the years of case law creates all these kinds of absurdities that we can't seem to wriggle out of. So that's a big factor. Rwanda, I'm not so sure about, but we just need to enforce the law as it is. You know, essentially, if you come here, you will easily be able to slip away. There are so many cases where people have been told you're not allowed to stay, but they're not actually deported. So there's no, you know, there's nothing to disincentivize people from coming.
Fraser, you must be pretty pessimistic then, because the odds of us leaving the ECHR are next to zero under this government, or indeed even with the Conservatives under Kemi Badenoch. So, in your view, we're doomed, aren't we?
A little bit. I mean, it's also possible to ignore the ECHR, which is what France does quite a lot. They will make their own risk assessment and decide that someone is too dangerous and then deport them anyway, which seems sensible. That's not going to happen under Keir Starmer, because he seems to have, you know, one of the few consistent principles, if you can call it that he holds, is that he believes in international law, international courts, human rights law above everything else. Maybe that might be different under, you know, a Conservative administration, or, you know, perhaps a different flavour of government that we might not expect. But yes, I think under Labour, I don't have any hope of things changing.
At what point will somebody take this seriously? Because I'm looking at it, I'm thinking, this has to stop. Even the French must be looking at it and thinking, because there was a moment when we left the EU, that there was, let them come across, that attitude was definitely there. Now it's really affecting the French, because people are coming to France specifically to now cross the Channel. Why don't they do something serious about it at their end?
Well, I think it's hard to say how much or little they're doing, but I think but you're right, you know, we do have to take this seriously. We can't just... It's really actually quite scary how, you know, every other week it seems like a group of people die. It sort of falls out of the news cycle. You know, these are 3 human beings that perished in the Channel. There are people been crossing on Christmas Day. This really is something that governments do have to get a grip with, but I feel like the political class doesn't really care about enforcing our borders. In fact, they probably think it's dirty to enforce Britain's borders. The outgoing head of the border force a few years ago says, I bloody hate borders. So when you have that in the British political class, I think in the European political class as well, it's going to be very difficult to get a grip on this problem. It's not at the top of their inbox.
Labour would say, the government will say, that they do take it very seriously. Admittedly, it wasn't one of their milestones or missions, whatever it was, in his reset speech, Prime Minister's reset speech a couple of months ago. But they do say that smashing the gangs, controlling migration is very important, and they're essentially blaming the previous government for not taking it seriously enough. So at least in rhetoric, you'd have to say that they are taking it seriously.
I think certainly yes, and Keir Starmer has come out with, in terms of rhetoric, and Keir Starmer also gave that speech talking about the explosion in legal migration as well. But is that really part of Labour's underlying philosophy? I think many people, certainly party members, a lot of the MPs, actually think that this is really about, the answer to this is to have more safe routes, things like that. That's not necessarily a bad thing. People can be generous to genuine asylum seekers. We have been in this country. Think about all the hundreds of thousands of people who've come from Hong Kong, escaping oppression from the CCP or from Ukraine during the war. People understand that it's the right thing to do to give asylum to people in those circumstances. But I think Labour seems to see everyone automatically as deserving of a right to come here. And I think that's sort of baked into how they see the world, even if Keir Starmer gives a speech decrying the Tories being an open borders party.
That was Fraser Myers earlier today. Now, former US President Jimmy Carter has died at the age of 100.
The one-term 39th president died on Sunday after spending more than a year in a hospice.
The Democrat served in the White House between 1977 and 1981 before being beaten in a re-election bid landslide by Republican Ronald Reagan in 1980. Carter's death was confirmed by his son.
Well, we're joined now by the chairman of Republicans Overseas, Greg Svensson. Greg, welcome. Now, this is obviously, he was 100, he was in a hospice. People would have known that he probably didn't have long to live. What was his real legacy? Because he actually wasn't in power for very long at all.
He served just one term, and it was a complete failure by most measures. There were some successes. So, he did broker a peace deal between Israel and Egypt, which was a pretty big deal at the time. He did start the deregulation process in the economy, so I give him credit for that. He deregulated the trucking industry, for example, with the Staggers Rail Act. He deregulated the rails business and, of course, the airlines. So there is some positive. He also hired Paul Volcker, which really helped Reagan in reducing inflation a few years later. But for the most part, those were the highlights. And there's a lot of comparisons today between Biden and Carter. They say Biden's the worst president since Jimmy Carter. I think that's an insult to Jimmy Carter because Biden is much worse. Many of the problems that Carter faced, he inherited. And so inflation was already high. He made it worse, but inflation was already in place, for example. The Iran situation with the hostages, not really all his fault. Maybe the way he managed it wasn't great, but many of the problems facing Jimmy Carter were in place during the Nixon and Ford administration. So whereas Biden created most of the problems, practically all of them. Some of them were, self-inflicted wounds, but also perhaps he did it on purpose. The open border,
I don't
inflation.
think he knew what he was doing.
Well, that too. And so Carter, he'll go down in history as maybe a failed president, but his legacy in his post-presidency years, the last 50 years, is much better. Habitat for Humanity. He did some charitable things. He also made some mistakes, meddling in foreign policy, for example, in North Korea and in the Middle East. So I think he surely upset the George H.W. Bush administration by meddling in the first Iraq War and Desert Storm, trying to basically treasonous behavior. And then in the Clinton years, he meddled a lot in Clinton's foreign policy. He visited North Korea, and he brought a CNN crew, which was not very cool. So, he made some mistakes, but I think his legacy, generally speaking, as post-president, is very positive.
He won the Nobel Peace Prize, didn't he?
He did, yeah.
Post-presidency.
That's right, 2002, I believe,
Yeah. That's really his lasting legacy, isn't it? Is that part of his life rather than...
he did some good things.
I suppose you could say the fact that he lost so badly in the 1980s.
Absolute shellacking of an election. I mean, imagine losing to... he was an incumbent president, and he only won 6 states in 1980. So Reagan, really beat him badly. And remember, there was a third-party candidate at the time named John Anderson who took a few votes. Otherwise, Reagan would have won it by an even greater landslide.
Let's talk a little bit about what's happening next, because we've got the inauguration of
January 20th.
20th of January.
Yeah.
The mood in the US, how are people feeling?
It's optimism like I haven't seen possibly since the 80s. People are really fired up. Even people that disliked Trump in the first term, Many people have come around. So there's some real optimism. Part of that is just because the Biden years were so bad. But a lot of it is just pushback against, the open border, the inflation that we experienced. But generally speaking, there's just a ton of optimism.
Well, Donald Trump has issued a few statements, hasn't he, following the death of President Jimmy Carter. He said, we all owe him a debt of gratitude. Carter died Sunday at the age of 100. Now, this is, and he also posted on Truth Social.
Yeah, I thought that was well done.
It was a lovely post, and, he's very, in many views, respectable and very popular. But isn't there an attempt now to try and unseat him for insurrection?
Oh, of course. Yeah, I mean, this isn't... They're not rebelling quite as much as they did. When I say they, the left in the media. It's not quite as radical as it was in 2016 and 17. So, but there will still be those kind of attempts. But it's just typical.
But aren't they using an old law or something, saying that because it's Congress who are using an old law, if you've been involved in an insurrection,
right,
then you cannot become the president.
That's right, which he wasn't, because they like to use that word insurrection, but it clearly wasn't.
To be fair to Joe Biden, he has said he is attending the inauguration. Yeah. So there will be that safe, that good for him, peaceful transfer of power.
But could he decide not to? I don't think that would be wise for...
Well, Trump didn't last time.
Did he not?
No, he did not. Because it was after Jan 6 and sort of the controversial election in 2020. I didn't... look, I think it's great that Joe Biden is attending. Of course, Biden so badly wanted to be president all his life. He needs that one more morning of being president on January 20th.
Let's be honest about Joe Biden. I don't think he knows where he is. I don't think he's all together. I think he's very ill.
That's clear. I mean, the Wall Street Journal wrote a scathing article last week, which made the rounds here, maybe not at the BBC, but it really exposed that his problems started right out of the gates in early 21. In the first days of administration, his inner circle was controlling him. He was having, quote-unquote, good days and bad days. So if he was in a cognitive fog, they just cancelled his meetings.
But, Greg, who was that inner circle? Because it can't have been Kamala Harris, because there was a rift in their relationship. They never really got on, to understand the report.
She was completely absent. So it was
Barack Obama?
Well, behind the scenes, perhaps, because a lot of his people, like Susan Rice, were involved. I think in foreign policy, it was very much Anthony Blinken and Jake Sullivan, National Security Advisor, Anthony Blinken, Secretary of State. And remember, Anthony Blinken has been with Biden forever, and he was with him in the 4 years between vice president and president. During the first Trump term, he worked in the same China-backed think tank. And Anthony Blinken was orchestrated the scam 51 former intelligence officers saying that the Hunter Biden laptop was Russian disinformation. That came from Anthony Blinken. So he was protected from the get-go by Blinken during the campaign, but also in the White House.
But the White House might say that he relied on trusted advisors, but he was in charge. He was the president. He was making those decisions, and this is really just conservative or critical media spin.
I think that argument was made during...
If he didn't have some sort of mental illness or something going on, which we could all see.
It was a great cover-up, and it was the inner circle, the Democrats in general, and the media that covered it up. But they just, now that the election is over, the truth is coming out. So these were interviews that the Wall Street Journal did with inner circle people in the White House, and it's pretty clear. And even before the debate on June 27th, where the whole world saw how bad he was, 65% of Americans thought that he had cognitive problems. And that's before the debate. So the cover-up didn't really work, but I think that you'll see, I think there'll be books written about this mass cover-up and what the party and the left did.
But it really, people call it a mass cover-up, an attempted cover-up, I would say, because it was clear to me,
it really
and most of us, it was like the Emperor is in the room, we know the Emperor is naked, even if you're telling us that he's got clothes, we can see, but yet they continue to push the narrative. I thought it was actually disgraceful.
It really was disgraceful.
He wasn't fit for office at any point.
No, and what's worse, I wouldn't say worse, but as bad is the cover-up. And the fact, you are honest journalists, whereas in the U.S. you had almost an entire industry in on the scam.
It's ridiculous.
And so, again, that makes Jimmy Carter look really good. At least he was a decent man. He was an evangelical Christian. He was a family man. He was a good guy. He served his country. He was an Annapolis Naval Academy graduate and a World War II era veteran. And so signed up for the academy really the height of World War II. So, you know, a good man who wasn't a great president.
All right, Greg Sensen, thank you very much.
Great to be here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Right, time to get your weather update. Find out if you need a brolly over the new year with Greg Dewhurst.
Heavy showers first thing will be followed by a warm, cosy day. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast. Low pressure systems brings an unsettled end to 2024 and a very unsettled start to the new year as well, as wind, rain and snow feature in the forecast. Rain and snow already across Scotland this morning, continuing through the day. Some local disruption here with Met Office warnings in force. The wind's also picking up across parts of the north, particularly northern England, with gusts of 50 to 60 miles an hour. A wind warning in force here through the day. Generally cloudy though, further south and breezy, some bright spells at times, but the cloud thick enough for 1 or 2 spots of rain, and temperatures on the mild side generally reaching 9 or 10 Celsius. A brief respite in the rain and snow for a time across Scotland this evening, but it won't be long before further rain and snow pushes back in here with some disruption. Rainfall totals building through the next 24 hours, over 100 millimetres in places. Still breezy across Northern Ireland, southern Scotland, northern England with outbreaks of rain here, but generally a drier picture for the rest of England and Wales. They're rather cloudy, the cloud thick enough for a few spots of drizzle, but on the mild side to end the day. And you can see there further rain and snow across Scotland to end the day and take us into the early hours. Generally cloudy and breezy elsewhere. The band of rain pushing into Northern Ireland, southern Scotland, northern England as we head overnight. And temperatures with the winds coming in from the southwest holding up, generally 7 to 10 Celsius. For many, though, cold air across northern Scotland here will temperatures starting the day around 1 or 2 Celsius, snow and rain in places. And then this band of rain just slowly pushes its way southwards New Year's Eve morning time. Some strong winds developing too. Further Met Office warnings in force as low pressure really dominates, staying dry across some southern counties of England, but often cloudy. Here, mild temperatures around 11 or 12 Celsius, starting to turn colder and staying unsettled into New Year's Day.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Right, still to come, Northern Ireland are considering recruiting women into the police force as a 50-50 basis with men. We'll tell you all about that next. This is GB News Breakfast with Adam and Nana.
Lee Anderson's Real World, Fridays from 7 p.m.
I'm joined with Ryan Mark Parsons, who's a TV personality, a columnist, and he was on The Apprentice a few years back, weren't you? That's where most people would recognise your face from. One of the youngest contenders ever on The Apprentice. How did that work out?
Well, you know what? I never in a million years thought I'd get on the show. I was 18 when I applied. There were about 6 months of auditions. It was intense. You met Lord Sugar's advisors, his lawyers, his business advisors. It was the most intense thing I've ever done. And I just thought, never in a million years am I going to get on the show as a teenager. And I got the call from the exec. And he was like, you're one of the 16 candidates. And it was just like, really? So I took a gap year. I've just finished my A-levels. I was working in Harrods before. And I just came up with this business idea, took it onto the show, and I got fired in the end. I lasted 8 weeks, which wasn't too bad. But
what was the business idea? Educate me.
A concierge, similar to companies like Velocity Black, quintessentially, that work with some of the private banks. It was similar to that. I was inspired by my time in Harrods, working with some of these ultra-high net worth clients. So I just wrote a 40-page business plan like we all have to do. But I didn't make it to the interview, so I didn't get to talk about it. But no, it was a great experience, a very tough experience, but unforgettable.
So at a young age, how did that change your life at that age? Because you must have got recognised, starting to be recognised when you're going out and about town.
Yeah, I mean, it happened quite quickly because the adverts start rolling out on BBC One and then the shows go on air. It's once a week on a Wednesday. You're getting about 7 million people tuning in every week.
Yep.
And yeah, it was surreal. It was surreal. And then suddenly you get invitations to things. You're going to premieres, and it was a lot. It was a lot at a young age, and I obviously had no training for any of that, but I just embraced it, and I've had fun with it.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more.
Whether it's breaking royal news,
Will, please bring us up to date.
or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons,
Very, very curious.
we bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the arguments. We get rid of the disrespect, and then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. Now, could police forces in Northern Ireland recruit women on a 50-50 basis with men?
It is Stormont officials are aiming to address their severe underrepresentation.
Well, GB News' Northern Ireland reporter Dougie Beattie is live in Belfast for us. Dougie, what's going on here? Is this what the police force really needs over there?
Well, no, I mean, this is papers that were released back from 2002 when Northern Ireland's police service was being disbanded, the Royal Ulster Constabulary, as it was called then. It was one of the best police forces in the world to deal with anti-terrorism. And under the Good Friday Agreement and under Tony Blair, it was decided that the Royal Ulster Constabulary could no longer exist because it wasn't acceptable to both sides of the community. So what they really did was that they did away with the Royal Ulster Constabulary. Chris Patton brought out a deal for them, the Patton report that came out, and within 4 years over 5,000 officers, really highly experienced officers, had left the RUC and PSNI. How experienced were they? They went off to become working as advisors for the CIA, many of different countries around the world. One of them even became the chief constable at Basra after the first Gulf War. So that was the type of experience they were losing, and they decided that the PSNI would be the acceptable part of a new police force, and they put into place 50-50 recruitment, so as those from the Catholic community would also join, as well as the Protestant community. Well, it didn't actually work because to this day there is still not 50-50. I think there's only 26% from the Catholic community born in Northern Ireland are actually in the police service here. But the interesting part in this was that Stormont officials had asked how legal was it, because they wanted 50-50 recruitment from women. And at that time, of course, Keir Starmer was the human rights lawyer that was looking after the Policing Board of Northern Ireland, and they said it wasn't viable to do so at that time because there was already a massive amount taken out of the force. Is it really that much news? Well, it is, because the same people are involved. Alistair Campbell, Tony Blair, Keir Starmer, Alistair Campbell. All of this comes out after last week's revelations from the Irish government after these papers being released, that of course they tried to amend Gerry Adams' speech even after Sinn Féin were caught with highly sensitive information while in government in Stormont, and they were trying to get them back into power. But really, it looks at how the police force in Northern Ireland is made up nowadays, and it shines a light on that. And roughly about 30% of the staff inside the PSNI are now women. And it brings into, really, makes you ask the question, if this was nowadays, when people can't actually say what is a man and what is a woman, would that gender policy work? And how would that shape out inside a police force?
Well, you see, this is the thing, really, and it's, you know, every now and again we have these stories, and then you hear Keir Starmer and the others who were behind it, and he was the head of prosecutions at the time, and my head starts to spin as soon as he suddenly becomes involved in these things. But in reality, I actually don't think it is viable, because It's like saying we want this level of representation for black people for the police, yet many black people won't apply anyway. So you can't force a sort of quota in terms of representation just to satisfy an ideology when it's not really a reality at all. And in many instances, it might not even be practical.
Well, that's exactly what happened, Nana. Many of those from the Catholic community decided not to join the PSNI, and many women decided not to join the PSNI. The police service is really a calling. And, I mean, I wouldn't be a police officer for anybody's money. I mean, when you go out on those streets, you're looking at all different types of things now than you were 20 years ago, especially with human rights, civil rights, and that you may offend someone. So really, when we're dealing with police officers in particular, to say that they must take it by gender is probably not correct. But they tried this back in 2022 and it was refused and said that, as you have said, it wasn't viable.
WBT, thank you very much for joining us live from Belfast. Now, still to come, Aidan McGee will be here with all your latest sports news next. This is GB Breakfast with Adam and Nana.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. In Londonderry on the A515, the Foyle Bridge is closed to high-sided vehicles because of strong winds. Buses replace Tyne and Wear Metro services between Heworth and Monument for emergency engineering works. In North Yorkshire, the A64 is closed eastbound, south of York from the Copperthorpe roundabout to the A19 Fulford interchange after an accident last night. The Port of Holyhead remains closed for repairs. Buses replace trains between Bletchley and Bedford because of a faulty train. In Essex, the A13 is closed westbound at the Pitsea flyover and eastbound from the Pitsea flyover to the Sadler's Farm roundabout for an investigation. Trains aren't running into and out of Liverpool Street Station in London because of engineering works, and there's disruption to some departures at Gatwick Airport after the fog yesterday. Delays of up to half an hour and some cancelled flights. And that's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website gbnews.com.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
This week is Chocolate Week, the ultimate celebration of everything rich, sweet and indulgent.
Yes, and we now have the best person in the studio with us to satisfy all of your chocolate cravings. We're joined now by master chocolatier Ollie the Choc. Ollie,
hello.
Really
Ollie.
good to see you this
morning. Thank you for having me.
And you brought some of your chocolate in with you.
I did. I brought some tasting samples. You're very welcome to help yourself.
So what have you got here? Tell us.
So this is my signature chocolate. I call it the Holy Grail. It's got sea salt flakes, crushed Oreo, caramel fudge pieces, very Moorish.
I love a caramel and salt combo, just, you know. I feel like you see it everywhere now. Look,
you won't be disappointed.
Look, I want everyone to see a close-up of this one. Can we get a shot on this one? So this is Oreo, there we are, caramel and salt. Do you want to try some?
You go first. Help yourselves. And then this bar of chocolate is a little bit of a wild card. That's a mystery flavour, so...
OK, I love a mystery.
I'm not going to tell you what that is.
Hold on this one. This one's amazing.
Are you?
Oreo, caramel.
That's my biggest seller.
I'll keep my palate clean for this. So this is a mystery flavour.
You've got to guess what that is.
Is that a nut in there, I see? Right, here we go. Ready?
I'm not saying anything.
Talk us through.
Very crunchy.
For me, I'm all about textures in chocolate.
Me too.
It has got a good crunch to it, hasn't it? It's not the kind of flavour that you would expect.
Oh, I can't get it.
Is it sweet? Is it salty?
Wait, no, it's salty, yeah.
It's salty.
Hang on, bit more.
OK.
Bit more.
I mean, just keep going.
Crisps? Wait,
It is crispy, it's crunchy. Could it be crisps?
I think it could be crisps. Yeah, it's crisps.
So what flavour?
Salt and vinegar. Cheese and onion.
Yes,
Salt and
you know.
Oh, you're much better than me.
Love that.
Do you know what? I think I've got a bit of a cold, so my taste buds are...
Oh, you're going to blame that, are you?
That's my excuse. That's delicious.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Welcome back. Now it's time to go through all the latest sports news. Aidan McGee is here with us. Aidan, what's going on?
Well, let's start with the Premier League. It's a huge time for the Premier League, the football calendar at this time of year, in common with the darts, obviously, as we've mentioned. Boxing as well, getting involved in the festive schedule. We spoke to Frank Warren just a couple of weeks ago on Breakfast Show here on Saturday, and I said to him, look, Fury Usyk 2, I said, is there anything we should read into the fact that such a big fight takes place around Christmas? And he said, well, look, we've maybe missed a trick over the last 20 or 30 years, not having big sporting events, just as we have in football and darts around there. It fits into our festive schedule very nicely, and we had a real explosion of action yesterday in a variety of different sports. Let's start with Liverpool winning 5-0 at West Ham. 8 points clear now, Adam, at the top of the Premier League, looking all but imperious. And their performance yesterday, they're so difficult to defend against. Once you got this guy Mo Salah who's out for a new contract, once you get him, he takes over like 2 defenders, and it creates so much more space for the other players, and it's rattling in goals. West Ham weren't in great shape before the game, it has to be said, and their manager Julen Lopetegui is struggling, or is under pressure, you'd have to say. But we saw last season, Anna, we mentioned it a couple of hours ago, didn't we? Jurgen Klopp, so good at Liverpool for 9 years, very consistent, kept him in the top 4, top 2 often, won the Champions League, won the Premier League after 30 years, absolutely outstanding. So we expected that when he left, he announced his retirement effectively from the Premier League in February time. We thought there'd be a drop-off, and this guy Arne Slot, unheralded relatively from Holland, I don't even think he was their first choice. He comes in, and he doesn't only maintain things, which is really hard to do. He makes them even better. They're going to win the Premier League title this season. There's no question about that. For only the second time in 35 years, and they did it yesterday in fine style. I should mention as well, Ludek McCloskey, the former West Ham goalkeeper, 63 years old. He announced before the game at the London Stadium yesterday that he has withdrawn from cancer treatment after his diagnosis 3 years ago. He's had enough. He's done all the chemo. It's not been working as he expected, and he doesn't want to put himself through the grind of what it does to your body when who's to say how long he's got left? He could have a fair amount of time left, and he wants to spend it around his family. He's still working in Czechoslovakia, as a goalkeeping coach for Baník Ostrava, who the side he joined West Ham from back in February 1990. So he got a massive, rousing round of applause last night from everybody, including Liverpool fans who remember how difficult he was, an obstacle to play against. And I think that's great to see. It's just a shame West Ham couldn't match that with the performance, and they lost.
Unfortunately not, But it was interesting that there are so many matches around this time, because, like you said, I don't recall a time when we've had lots of matches over Christmas.
Well, I think matches have been there, but you're seeing that the success of football has seen others kind of... I mean, the darts has been there for a while, but it's rare that we've seen boxing. Everyone wants to see sport around this quimbo limbo that we're talking about.
Exactly. Everyone's at home watching.
Boris Johnson told the Premier League chiefs, he said during lockdown, he said, get the football back on. Everyone's sitting at home doing nothing. Get some football on. Get some focus off Chris Whitty and into the Premier League. Yeah. And that's what we do at Christmas. We're sitting around doing nothing. That's why we see 3 games in 7 days. And you get overseas managers as well moaning about the schedule, Nana. Oh, you know, they only get paid $300 a week, so they shouldn't have to, but they still shouldn't have to play around Christmas. Well, you know what? It may not be the case in other countries, other leagues around Europe, but that's part of the endurance test here. You get very well remunerated. The broadcasters put their money where their mouth is, so they expect their stars to be performing when the punters want them to be performing around Christmas time. You mentioned earlier on the ticket prices. Yeah. Well, if they're paying that amount of money, I don't think 3 games in 7 days is that much, do you? I mean, what entertainment we got?
$300 a week.
Some players get that.
Absolutely ridiculous.
It's not ridiculous.
They ain't that good.
They are that good. They are that good. They are. If they weren't that good, why would they be getting that money?
They pay the market rate.
Because there's just a lot of money.
Look at what the TV. Look at the money the TV. Look at the money the players get. Then compare it to what the TV companies earn out of it. It's like that. Believe me.
Are you saying the players get more in comparison with the TV?
No, I said TV companies get more. They make the players earn billions. The TV companies earn billions.
It's just absurd. It really
is. It is absurd, but there's a lot of money because the demand is there, and that's why any managers who moan about playing around Christmas, well, they can shut it as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
And let's look at listen. I'm not ready to shut it. Let's be clear about that. We've got some other good results to go through. City won their second game in 14 at Leicester, winning 2-0. Southampton losing at Crystal Palace could set a record for the lowest number of points ever. I just wanted to touch as well, we did the darts to death in the last couple of hours, but Novak Djokovic appointed Andy Murray, his great rival, as his coach back in the autumn there, a couple of months ago. Murray had retired from tennis back in September, and he said he's bringing a fresh look to his game, and that's really exciting to hear because Djokovic doesn't mind. He's one of those guys. He's not the ego everyone thinks he is because he likes a big name coaching him. He won't have a yes man. He's had Andre Agassi coaching him. He's had Boris Becker. He's had Goran Ivanisevic. Now Andy Murray, somebody who can bring a fresh perspective, who's faced him over the net. that knows what Djokovic likes to play against, knows Djokovic's weaknesses, and can go in there and say, you know what, you're great, you've won 24 Grand Slams, but you know what, just tweak that a little bit, and you might make it 25th.
But you'd think that you'd want somebody to coach you who maybe was a better player than you. And Andy Murray
who would that be, you know?
He's a good player. He was, and I give him all credit for winning some big titles, because a lot of British tennis stars were not winning anything, so he broke through all that. But if you put them two together, Djokovic 99.9% would win.
No, not necessarily. It depends. There was a period of years where I felt Murray was ahead of him. Absolutely, there was. Yeah, a couple about 2 years.
Djokovic is quite gloomy, though. He doesn't.
But also,
I love him.
The question we were talking about this during the break, weren't we? Which is that it's an interesting move for Andy Murray, because there were questions over what he was going to do post-retirement. A lot of these guys sit around the house. What happens next?
You can look at your pile of cash. You can look at it from bottom to top and think, wow, what lump of reddies I've accumulated there. But you know what? When you're sitting indoors, and I'm not relating this to Andy Murray at all, but there's been lots of sports people I've known down the years who've made 12, 15 million pounds in their chosen sport and still managed to blow it. It's about keeping active. It really is. Alex Ferguson said to me back in 2011, he said, I'm going to retire soon. I won't be around forever, but I'm going to be even busier when I retire than I am managing Man United. He stuck to that, and that's why his earnings doubled.
Well, OK, well, good for that. Aidan McGee.
Good to see you both this morning.
Good to talk to you. Right.
Right, well, still to come. If you are in search of some winter... Let's move. We're not sure what you're in search of.
Some winter sun. And here are some wonderful holiday destinations, the top European holiday destinations.
We got there.
Ready to soak up that holiday sunshine?
Won't we need some cover?
No worries. All sorted.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hello there. Conditions slowly improving across the far east of the Mediterranean, but the risk of showers across southern parts of Spain over the next 24 hours. Low pressure starting to pull away, but still the risk of some heavy showers for Cyprus, but generally dry across Greece, across into Italy. Sunny spells here, temperatures around average for the time of year, but the risk of some showers across southern Spain, and generally dry as well towards Tenerife there, reaching 20 Celsius. Generally dry for the next few days, best of the sunshine towards eastern parts. See you soon.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Oh, good morning. Still to come, we'll be going through today's top stories with Dawn Neeson and Norman Baker in Making the News. That is next. This is GB News Breakfast with Adam and Nana.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there short and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Sunday with Michael Portillo from 11, only on GB News.
Joining me now is food historian and author of Christmas with Dickens, Pen Vogler. Pen, let's start with Christmas Carol. Did A Christmas Carol change Britain's view of Christmas?
I think it did, enormously. Before then, people were beginning to think, as they do now, that Christmas might be being a little bit commercial. It was too much food and drink, not enough kind of seriousness or not enough kind of love and family. And what Dickens did with A Christmas Carol was show people who were coming to the cities, who were kind of losing their rural history, a new way of celebrating Christmas, that a real, just a family could get together and love and kind of get around the table together. And whereas before, a lot of those kind of Christmas dishes would have been seasonal, lots of people would have eaten them at different times of the year, Dickens does two things. He takes the goose, which is what the Cratchits are going to eat, and he turns it to a turkey, much bigger, meatier, kind of more generous. And then he takes this thing that he never calls Christmas pudding in A Christmas Carol. There's no Christmas pudding. He only calls it plum pudding, and he anchors it to that day. And interestingly, after then, people start publishing recipes for Christmas pudding, and it starts getting its name, Christmas pudding, from plum pudding. And I think all of that really comes from A Christmas Carol.
you say becomes a Christmas pudding almost immediately after A Christmas Carol is published.
Yes, I mean, it's occasionally called Christmas pudding before, but not often. And then a very famous for the time, the kind of Delia Smith of her day, lady called Eliza Acton, publishes a recipe called The Author's Christmas Pudding in 1845. And we know she's a big Dickens fan because she sent a copy of her cookbook to him.
GB News, the People's Channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30am.
Only on GB News.
I'm Michael Portillo. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Oh, there's a nice little hazy in, hazy out. Well, listen, joining us to go through what's making the news, Norman Baker and Dawn Neeson. Right, I want to start with this story because I'm a bit of a health bunny sometimes. And this says each cigarette takes 20 minutes off your life. Who wants to go first? Norman Baker?
Well, indeed, this is... In fact, it depends what paper you read, because according to the Mail, it takes 70 minutes off your life, and according to the Sun, it takes 20 minutes off your life. So I guess your life gets shorter if you read the Sun rather than if you read the Mail.
Isn't it if you're a man, you lose 17?
That's also true.
And if you're a woman, you lose 22.
That's the Mail being very specific, whereas the Sun's the Mail's rounded it up to... the Sun's rounded up to 20 minutes overall. This is a study from University College London, which says that the amount of loss of life has gone up in their estimate from 11 minutes per cigarette to 17 or 20 or 22, depending on who you believe.
do you smoke? Have you ever smoked?
No. Back in the day, I think like most kids, the husband was in a band, so, you know, to be one of the cool, edgy girls, I had a couple of puffs, but not really a smoker, and my dad died of lung cancer, so it's not something I condone as well. But that's a shocking statistic, isn't it? I mean,
it is. Yeah, every time you take a puff, you're shortening your life.
So I'm not allowed to ask you about smoking, am I?
What do you smoke? Have you smoked?
I don't believe in smoking cigarettes, never have done, though my dad and my mum both smoked, and my dad died at 49, largely, I think, because of smoking. So I think the generation above me, actually, a whole lot of people did smoke and paid the price for it.
What do we think
about you, Adam? Did you smoke?
Well, when drunk, occasionally I misbehave, but I think I'll be all right.
Well, I used to smoke. I used to smoke, and then I used to smoke, but that was when I was a lot younger because it was like the cool thing to do. And then somebody told me that I would get lips like a backside.
Yeah.
And that was the end of it. Literally, the next day I put them straight down like a bottom hole.
I want to know how Adam misbehaves.
Yeah, go on, Adam.
Well, you know, look, listen.
A cigarette?
You have a few. You have a few shandies. You have a few shandies.
And a cigarette.
And then
shandy.
Your mate's there.
And
shandies.
That's a bit weak.
Oh God.
After you.
What's going on there?
This collectible
after your shandy and your cigarette.
Shandy.
What happens after that? When you.
We have another shandy, I think, don't you?
Another shandy.
Come on.
Those nice ones fly past.
You need some Lego bricks, that's the thing.
Well, exactly. Right. Well. But anyway, the good news, I suppose, for the next generation is none of this is going to matter because they're not going to be able to smoke anyway, are they?
No. Well, I don't know. They're going to make it illegal, which means it's going to become more hip in some ways to get hold of it.
Yeah, it'll be more underground. It's like you ban anything.
Not to this new Gen Z. They don't drink. They don't go to parties. They don't even do dating online.
What do they do now?
Nothing. They TikTok.
Yes.
I see. It's true. And I see my daughter watching this TikTok, and she's doing this dancing on TikTok, and she suddenly goes.
Yeah.
I ask her something, and she goes. Before she answers, she goes, "Yeah, Mum."
Right.
God, girl. She says to me, I'm like, what? What the hell happened there?
Rather that than cigarettes. Then.
Can I make a plea? Since we're in Britain and call it Gen Z, I think we should call it Gen Z, not Gen Z.
Gen Z, yeah.
No, good point.
I'm going to go with Gen Z.
I'm glad we're the generation we are, Norman.
Yeah.
Knew how to have some fun.
Yeah, exactly.
Not that we can talk about it. Norman?
No.
Well, let's talk. What about this next one? Now, this is quite serious. Incidents of driving the wrong way on a motorway. Now, these have increased by 15% in the...
Yes, 15%
Who
up.
would do that?
Well, according to the AA, part of it is criminals trying to evade the police and driving up motorways the wrong way to try and get away from them. But it's also people relying on sat-navs and not paying attention to their driving. They're abdicating responsibility for their own driving, looking at a sat-nav. Now, this happens quite a lot, and I had a constituent who actually was told to take the next left, and she turned along a railway line because that was the next left. It's true.
Well, couldn't you see that
and
wasn't the next
someone allegedly, I don't know if it's true or not, but someone drove over a cliff could have told to drive a particular way.
People just
they
not look at the road. Sense.
No, they don't use the common sense. They rely on the machine.
It's like on country lanes where you get lorry drivers, HGVs, big Arctics following Satnav, not realising they're driving down a country lane and they get stuck in there. And it's just like, we can't have a Satnav in the car because I always end up rowing with it. It's like, no, that's wrong, turn it off.
Yeah, no, my Satnav, I think because they send everybody in the same direction, you end up in traffic.
So I just go and do my way.
Thing and then
I can't drive without it. Useless without it, Satnav.
Can you read a map? Can you read a map?
I don't know, never tried, no point.
I used to do A to Z
Google Maps, job done.
I used to read the A to Z all the time. You know, there's a little box, next page, I need you to know. Really? I don't think you could read a map.
Honestly, you're probably right.
That's
I'm ashamed to say that it's true.
amazing.
But, you know, I passed, by the time I passed, Google Maps was everywhere, or Apple, whatever.
So what if you're out in the countryside up a mountain or something or other and you can't get Google Maps, you can't get any reception, and someone gave you a map and said, get us off this mountain, what would you do?
Start crying.
Yeah, we'd be in real trouble, I think.
Have a cigarette and a shandy.
Yeah. Even worse. Well.
Just for the record, it says National Highways reported 988 incidents of vehicles going the wrong way on motorways in this year.
Oh, that's frightening, isn't it? That's
frightening. How do you do that?
All right, what about this one now? I do this all the time. Chatting to yourself in the mirror is a secret to feeling happy. This is a psychologist's claim.
I picked this one just for you, Nana.
Thank you.
Now, how often are you looking in it? How
I
long does this
talk
last?
to myself in the mirror and I'm there and I could be there for about 3 hours. And then I go, oh, crikey.
You've got a show to make.
Interesting person I know.
Well, this is according to a top psychologist called Dr. Linda Blair, and she's done a podcast explaining that having a quick chat with yourself in the mirror first thing in the morning is a key to making you feel happy and more confident as you go into your day. Unless you wake up like me and you look in the mirror and you go, oh, my God. It's not a good first thing in the morning.
Sort of a lightning strike.
Yeah, it's like, that's a certain thing. But there's a thing called mirror talk, and it's psychologists which can actually teach you to do it properly rather than like you.
There's not a proper way to do this. I mean, come
on. I'm making it up.
She's just going to make money out of that.
People will go to her.
I know it's not you, but
people are going to go to this psychologist.
You have a degree in that, I bet you.
Psychologists can teach you to do it properly, and it's about building your self-confidence.
No.
Addressing yourself directly helps you cope better with negative feelings. Not that Nana ever has negative feelings.
I
should be teaching this.
Well, this woman will make money from it. I'll do it myself. Norman Baker.
I don't think I don't look at myself in the mirror and start singing or talk to myself.
Yes, you
Well,
do.
it's because a headline you see is "Hey, good looking," which is a
because
Hank
Norman
Williams.
used to run record shops.
He has an
back in the
album. He
day.
gave me his album.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah.
And can still sing. Go on, what were you singing?
What have you got?
It was "Hey, good looking" was the title of the album.
Yeah, go
Hey,
on.
good looking, what you got cooking? How's about cooking something up with me?
Brilliant.
Shall we give him a round of applause?
Fantastic.
That was all right.
That's good for your mental health. I feel fantastic.
Yeah, mate, so you don't get newspaper if
You
you
do
do this
that.
anywhere
You do
else.
sing. I think Norman sings in the mirror.
I don't sing in the mirror or the sun or the mail or anything else. I just...
Oh, God, that's terrible.
Very good.
Oh.
The old ones are the best.
Right, Dawn, last one. If a gift doesn't deliver, return at 7:06 a.m. on Christmas Day. What's this about?
What are the people? What are you doing out there, right? Okay, so on Christmas Day, when you unwrap that gift and you get that fixed smile, like, that's lovely, darling, thank you. Well, evidently people are doing that, and after unwrapping their gifts at 7 o'clock in the morning, going straight online and booking this to parcel delivery service, by the way, and they were open over Christmas. You could drop them off. Going straight online at 6 minutes past 7 in the morning and going, my gift's really rubbish, can you come and collect it? I mean, come on, at least give it a try.
Did you do that?
No, I love my Christmas jumper, honestly, it's lovely, darling, thank you.
I got some very nice, sort of like over-the-knee, sort of leopardy, sort of patterned thigh boots.
Did you?
Hold on. Why is Nana getting thigh boots and I'm getting a West Ham Christmas jumper? What does this say about
Speaking
us?
of which...
Oh, thanks for reminding us.
No, I didn't mean to go there.
in tears at Christmas. 5-0 Liverpool.
Yeah, it was. I did leave early. A shandy might have been had as well.
Oh, you're a misbehaviour.
Did you get thigh-high boots, Adam?
Sadly not. I don't know. Yeah, I must have got lost in the mail. No, I got, what did I get? Dressing gown, I got new suit, which I'm not wearing today, but you'll see that debut tomorrow, perhaps.
Well, come on, the dressing gown tomorrow.
A dressing gown? Yeah, you'll see the dressing gown on the first one. I'm feeling worse for wear, actually. No, I was very happy with my haul. I think Santa did a good job.
But I think it is.
What kind of a dressing gown do you get? Has it got little horses or something on it?
No, it's like it's. I think I need to wash it because it leaves a lot of fluff everywhere. It's like blue and long.
It was going to be a fluffy dressing gown. It's probably got a hood and little ears on top.
Yeah. I mean, it has. I don't know why you knew that, but yeah, it's absolutely
I
right.
had visions of more of a sophisticated silk smoking dressing gown type thing.
You could have a cigar.
No, you've got one of those, Norman. I know.
With a cigarette holder.
Yeah,
so they don't smoke.
Except, yes, you've just given yourself away there. What did you get for Christmas, Norman?
Oh, nothing very much at all, really.
Never mind. Let's move on.
We were talking about records earlier on, and we got loads of vinyl. We're talking about re-emergence of vinyl. And what the husband and I tended to give each other was like vinyl records. So we're now like a branch of HMV. Other record shops are available. But vinyl is really making a comeback.
Fantastic.
I used to, I was a radio DJ, so I did all the vinyl and everything.
Oh, can you sing as well now? Can you give us a tune?
I'm actually training on the piano so that I can do Tina Turner's Private Dancer.
Oh, wow.
So I'll give you a burst of that when I'm finished. Now, let's talk about this.
In your thigh-high boots.
In my thigh-high boots. Let's talk about this, though, because the fun story, it was a haircut that we all hoped we'd left behind. The perm.
Yeah, I know.
Do you remember that? Kevin Keegan.
Norman was going to volunteer to try it out for us, but then that went a bit wrong.
You look like a clown.
20 years too late.
Yeah, but this is inspired by Gladiator 2, if you've seen it. Paul Mescal, he's got curly hair. And a chap, another actor I've never heard of, what's his name? US actor...
he's in The Bear.
Jeremy Allen White, he's in The Bear, where he's got curly hair as well. And this is inspiring men now to go for perms, which is interesting. Because when you're my generation, you just think of Kevin Keegan and the 70s and 80s perms.
And the guy in The Professionals, what's his name, Doyle.
God, yeah.
Bodie and Doyle.
Yeah.
I've forgotten his name now.
Martin
Shaw.
Yeah. So perms are coming back, boys.
I'll have to give it a go. This is the in thing.
Well, you at least have still got hair. You can.
Yeah,
You
for
could
now.
do it. No one could do it on the sides.
It'd be very limited power, I have to say.
Yeah, it's massive. It's going to be hot for 2025, boys. So if you can do it, go on it.
Yeah, I used to have a perm. When I was very young, I had the wet look. Do you remember that greasy thing? And I remember, have you ever seen the film Soul Man?
Yes,
Where the person leans back on the chair and they leave a greasy...
Oh, no, how horrible.
At the time, I was at boarding school, and I can remember I was at my best friend's house because it was the holidays, so they took me in because my parents lived in the States. And I can remember I went to lean my head back, and hands from nowhere literally came out and put a cloth behind the chair before my head could touch the...
There are some hairstyles that just shouldn't come back, really.
The wet look, God, that was bad. I mean, when I actually went to school, and it was run by nuns, Sister Teresa, who was the nun in charge, I'd just had the hairstyle done, and I said to her, "Ma'am, how does it look?" And she went, It's very flat." I've never forgotten that, ever. It kind of looked like a microphone,
So how long you were educated by nuns and you ended up wearing thigh-high boots on Christmas morning?
Well, I think that's what happens to us lot who go to these old schools.
Well, look, I'll give it a go, and then we'll report back.
What, the thigh-high boots or the perm?
All of it, yeah.
And the dressing gown.
You can sing, and I'll have my perm.
Thigh-high boots in your dressing gown with a perm.
Tomorrow? And
Tomorrow, well, it's asking a bit, but we'll give it a go. Stay tuned.
Yeah, well, listen, it's been a pleasure. Thank you very much.
Thank you both.
And also Norman Baker. Such a pleasure to talk to you. Loads more still to come here on GB News. Don't forget as well, you can download the GB News app or go and watch the show live on YouTube. All of that is loads more still to come, but time to get an update with your weather.
Despite the morning rain, it'll be a nice, warm, cosy day ahead. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, welcome to our latest GB News weather forecast. Low pressure systems brings an unsettled end to 2024 and a very unsettled start to the new year as well, as wind, rain and snow feature in the forecast. Rain and snow already across Scotland this morning, continuing through the day. Some local disruption here with Met Office warnings in force. The wind's also picking up across parts of the north, particularly northern England, with gusts of 50 to 60 miles an hour. A wind warning in force here through the day. Generally cloudy though, further south, and breezy, some bright spells at times, but the cloud thick enough for 1 or 2 spots of rain, and temperatures on the mild side generally reaching 9 or 10 Celsius. A brief respite in the rain and snow for a time across Scotland this evening. but it won't be long before further rain and snow pushes back in here with some disruption. Rainfall totals building through the next 24 hours, over 100 millimetres in places. Still breezy across Northern Ireland, southern Scotland, northern England with outbreaks of rain here, but generally a drier picture for the rest of England and Wales. They're rather cloudy, the cloud thick enough for a few spots of drizzle, but on the mild side to end the day. And you can see there further rain and snow across Scotland to end the day and take us into the early hours. Generally cloudy and breezy elsewhere. The band of rain pushing into Northern Ireland, southern Scotland, northern England as we head overnight. And temperatures with the winds coming in from the southwest holding up, generally 7 to 10 Celsius. For many, though, cold air across northern Scotland here will temperatures starting the day around 1 or 2 Celsius, snow and rain in places. And then this band of rain just slowly pushes its way southwards New Year's Eve morning time. Some strong winds developing too. Further Met Office warnings in force as low pressure really dominates, staying dry across some southern counties of England, but often cloudy. Here, mild temperatures around 11 or 12 Celsius, starting to turn colder and staying unsettled into New Year's Day.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. Train services are suspended between Fort William and Mallaig because of flooding. In Londonderry, the A515 is closed to high-sided vehicles over the Foyle Bridge because of strong winds. Buses replaced Tyne and Wear Metro services between Heworth and Monument because of emergency engineering works. In North Yorkshire, the A64 is closed eastbound south of York from the Cottonfoot roundabout to the A19 Fulford interchange after an accident last night. The Port of Holyhead remains closed to repairs. Trains aren't running into and out of Liverpool Street Station in London because of engineering works. There's disruption to some departures at Gatwick Airport after the fog yesterday. In East Sussex, there's a report of an accident on the A277 along the High Street in Lewis. And in Cornwall, the A39 is closed each way between the Willards Perch roundabout and the Trekning roundabout at St Column Major after an accident.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
There's still plenty of time to grab your chance to win our biggest cash prize ever, an incredible £50,000. What would you spend £50,000 on in the coming year? Spectacular holidays, a brand new car, home improvements, or maybe you'd just like to save it for a special occasion? For another chance to win, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. You can call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB10 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 31st of January. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News, the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good morning. The blame game.
The government say smuggling gangs are responsible for deaths in the English Channel.
3 migrants died off the coast of France on Sunday morning after a boat of 60 people capsized. And America is in mourning as former US President Jimmy Carter has died at the age of 100.
Joe Biden praised the one-term 39th president as a man of principle, faith and humility, while Donald Trump stated Americans owe him a debt of gratitude.
Up to 30 MPs who backed assisted dying could withdraw support at the next parliamentary vote.
Several are preparing to suggest amendments on coercion and the role of medics.
And tours, trials and triumphs. How Harry and Meghan fared in 2024.
Low pressure dominating the end of 2024 and taking us into the new year as well. Met Office warnings out for wind, rain and snow. Find out all the details coming up in the programme soon.
It's just gone 9 o'clock. I'm Adam Cherry.
And I'm Nana Acquia. This is GB News Breakfast. Well, you know, lots of people have been getting in touch as well on your say. Lovely to have all your thoughts. This is quite good. Lovely to hear what you're saying. June says, great team on this morning and good morning all. Wishing you all a nice day.
Good morning and Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to you as well.
Grumpy Grandad says, good morning. Good morning to you, Grumpy Grandad. And I think Christine there is asking, are Dawn's bands, her husband's bands, still performing?
Good question.
I didn't know they had a band there. Lots of you still are doing that. Keep those thoughts coming. gbnews.com/your say. Now, we've been talking a lot about all sorts of bits and pieces.
Yeah.
I think really important to talk about this assisted dying bill because up to 30 MPs who were backing the bill could now withdraw their support at the next parliamentary vote.
Several are preparing to suggest amendments on coercion and the role of medics.
Now, the committee that will examine the next stage of Kim Ledbetter's assisted dying bill will begin hearings in the new year.
Let's cross now to our political editor, Christopher Hope. Christopher, what is this? What is really going on here? I mean, we've already passed this in the first stage, and now MPs say they might be changing their mind. Is this bill actually going to become legislation after all?
Well, morning, Adam. Morning, Nana. No, what we are doing is what we knew we'd be doing, which is doing a line-by-line examination of Kim Ledbetter's bill. The concern is, I think, that there's lots of people on the committee examining it, and there's not enough room there for those voices of those concerned. So there are reports. I'm trying to stand them up. I'm trying to find MPs here in Westminster, difficult between Christmas and New Year, who are concerned. But there's a feeling, I think, that it needs to be more of a balanced committee, and it isn't so. And what that means is that when the measures are gone through on this assisted dying bill, there won't be enough weight put on those who are concerned about it and legalising this moment in British law, because it really is a kind of a threshold bill, a bit like the Abortion Act in 1967. We assume now it will get through, though it might get rejected at third reading by MPs, but the last bill to be rejected at that stage was a Sunday trading bill back in 1988, so very rarely that happens. So if it goes through, as it seems it will go through, that will be a threshold moment in our politics, and the measures in this law are so important to get right, and that's why there's concern.
The other concern was that it was a private member's bill, wasn't it? So it was given less scrutiny. So this should be really no surprise that now these MPs are now thinking, oh, hang on a minute. And I think the main problem here is the fact that they don't want a medic to be able to suggest it as an option. But there's a conflict of interest with the BMA who's saying, well, we need to suggest all options that are available to the patient. So how will they square that circle?
Yeah, Nana, what you're describing there is the impact of the bill, and what hasn't happened yet and didn't happen before the MPs voted on it before Christmas was an estimation of the impact of this on two areas. The health service, can doctors cope with it? What are the as you say, the protections there for families of those who might feel they're being forced into a position? And also on the judiciary, judges must sign off on any ruling to someone who wants to kill themselves or to go through this process. And the concern is, of course, that it might overwhelm courts. Already we have a long backlog of court cases. And it's worth noting that Shabana Mahmood, the Justice Secretary, and the Health Secretary, Wes Streeting, are both voted against this measure at the second reading when it was put forward. The reason why we don't know all this is because it is a private member's bill. It's one proposed by a backbench MP. The government is officially neutral on it, and I don't think, as this process goes on into the spring,
ring, that neutrality can be maintained. The government has got to at some point say, OK, we've listened to Parliament, we now get behind this measure, let's look at how it will impact the health service and our justice system and see how it can go forward. And also, are there enough protections there for people who fear they may be pushed into an outcome they don't want?
Christopher, isn't that the point? Although the government is supposed to be neutral on this, and it was a free vote, it was a vote of conscience, once you get into the nitty-gritty of this legislation, it's very complex, you'll end up dividing the cabinet, dividing the government and creating a real political mess here.
Well, not a mess. I mean, Parliament, it can be messy when big issues are discussed. But I think certainly Number 10 may be feeling it's a distraction. They're trying to deal with small boats. I mean, just look at that. GB News can reveal this hour, around 300 people crossed yesterday, Sunday, added to 322 on Saturday. And that totals 36,800 small boats crossings this year. That's up a quarter on 2023, but down on the record year of 2022. These numbers are embarrassing to whichever government's in post. We had the Labour government since July. Since July, 22,000, well, over 23,000 now have crossed. That's up 27% on the same period last year. This is Labour's problem. It was definitely a Tory failure. It's now a Labour failure. They are trying to crack down on gangs over on the continent. They're trying to do this new way of dealing with the issue by going upstream, tackling where these boats are housed in warehouses in Germany before being sent to the north coast of France to take migrants across to the UK. But it is failing. It isn't working. I think these kind of embarrassments are things which the government want to focus on and talk about more, I think. There's certainly concern amongst Red Bull Labour MPs. As many as 35 of them have formed a group urging the government to be more forward-facing, front-footed about this small boats crisis, to show those Red Bull seats they're trying to tackle it. Because the only beneficiary of all this mess, frankly, on the south coast of this country is Reform UK and Nigel Farage.
Well, Christopher Hope, thank you very much for that. That's Christopher Hope, our political editor in Westminster.
Right, well, the Duke and Duchess of Sussex have had a very busy year of royal-style tours, trials and triumphs, but it hasn't all been plain sailing.
Yeah, fragile business ventures and a number of High Court battles means Harry and Meghan's fight could continue into 2025.
All of it, which was of their own making. Now our royal correspondent Cameron Walker has more.
Prince Harry and Meghan's year included a mixture of personal triumphs and professional setbacks. In February, Harry settled his phone hacking case with Mirror Group newspapers, winning reportedly £300,000 in damages, plus legal costs. The Duke and Duchess of Sussex celebrated their 6th wedding anniversary this year, and in December, their office released a Christmas card featuring a new photo of the couple with their children. Other photos nodded to their 2 royal-style tours to Nigeria and Colombia. In Nigeria, Harry met injured service personnel and Meghan co-hosted a Women in Leadership event. In Colombia, the couple highlighted how social media and the internet can harm children.
What's happened? All of us agree, despite whatever disparities there are throughout the world, no one contests the fact that we want to keep our children safe.
A lot of people are scared and uncertain. And I think one of the solutions to that is education and awareness.
But both tours were not without controversy. Colombia in particular raised eyebrows about security because the Foreign Office advises British citizens not to travel to parts of the country. At the same time, Harry claims he can't bring his wife to the UK for safety reasons. It's understood the Sussexes were provided with a full security detail in Colombia. The Duke and Duchess also launched the Parents Network, supporting parents whose children have been affected by online harms. 14-year-old Breck Bednar was groomed online before being murdered in 2014. His mum, Lauren Lefebvre, says Harry and Meghan's profile helps raise awareness.
When people like to listen to a celebrity or a royal or, some people that have, some sort of famous element, it just brings more attention to it and helps with the cause. And I think that's really important because sometimes we just feel like a bunch of parents with no faces. We're just any old parent. And yet this can happen to any child.
In 2025, Meghan Markle plans to finally launch her lifestyle brand American Riviera Orchard and a new Netflix series focused on cooking, gardening and entertaining. But Harry's recent Polo documentary received poor reviews, leading to speculation about the future of their multi-million-pound Netflix deal. Harry and Meghan appeared to focus more on separate business and charity ventures, but are expected to travel together to Canada to attend the Invictus Games in Whistler this February. The Invictus Games, seen as one of Harry's biggest successes, supports sick or injured veterans in a Paralympic-style competition. Harry will dominate global headlines as early as January when he enters the dock in London to be grilled by lawyers representing The Sun newspaper over his unlawful information gathering allegations. The Sun has always denied Harry's claims. As his father, the King, continues weekly cancer treatment, perhaps there'll be another opportunity for the pair to meet too. Cameron Walker, GB News.
Wow, there we go. What do you reckon, Anna?
Well, look, this is the thing. The issue I have here is that it's all very laudable, them doing things for good causes. I have no animosity towards that. But what I kind of object to is actions speak louder than words. And if you look at what they're saying and then what they're doing to their own family, I find a huge lack of empathy. So if they're demonstrating empathy but dishing it out to other people on camera, whereas in reality, they've not taken their children to see their grandparents, which they could do. They're claiming it's for security reasons, yet they visited Colombia, one of the most dangerous places on earth, that is, reportedly, and Nigeria, another place where, you know, maybe they had full security, but still, again, this is not a choice that you would make if you're looking for complete safety. And then also the fact that Meghan hasn't taken her children, or herself even, to see her own father, who is sick and quite ill.
Very unwell, yeah. They've never met him, is that right?
They've never met him.
Never met
I don't
him.
think even Harry has met the dad either. I think they've maybe spoken over the phone, I think. But I don't believe what I'm seeing when I see them on camera being nice, whereas off camera, that's the behaviour. It doesn't work for me.
Kind of cynical. It's a branding thing rather than a sincere thing, I suppose.
Yeah, and I don't think, and people aren't buying into it. Yeah. That's why it's so off colour. It doesn't make sense. You know, the King and the Queen, Queen Camilla, you know, they're getting on now in their years, so surely you'd want the kids to meet the grandparents, but hey, what do I know? Stay with us, though, still to come. Northern Ireland consider recruiting women into the police force on a 50-50 basis with men. We'll talk about that next.
And with 2025 just around the corner, today at GB News, we're saying thank you, and we're sending our viewers a very special message. Take a look.
Thank you, Britain.
Thank you for watching.
Thank you for listening.
Thanks for subscribing.
Thank you for your support.
It's you that make us the People's Channel.
As we reflect on our journey so far, we're filled with immense gratitude.
You mean the world to us. We couldn't have reached this point without you.
As a very special thank you, we are giving you the chance to win one of 50 GB News thank you boxes. They're worth £50 each.
For full terms and conditions, and to enter, just go to gbnews.com/thank you.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the argument. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together and what have we got, in my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Well, joining us now is Feng Shui expert Karina Sophia, who's going to share some of the best ways to ensure that our homes are still feeling calm as well as beautifully decorated this Christmas time.
One of the Feng Shui myths is that Feng Shui is all about moving furniture, and it isn't at all. Oh. Well, there is a little bit of that. It is about the flow of energy, but it starts outside, so there's lots of different forms of Feng Shui. So what we're going to talk about today is one form called Flying Stars Feng Shui, and there's another one that's classical, and form Feng Shui starts outside. If a 5-year-old would walk past your house and be happy, then the energy will.
I love that.
So if a 5-year-old would like to see more, would like to come in and would touch anything and not get hurt, then it's a good thing and the energy is feeling good and wants to come in as well.
What about the light colours? Does that matter? Does that come into play?
Yes, there are different colours. Depending on the direction, the compass direction of your home, there are good colours that support energy inside the home. So if your home is facing north, for instance, then it would be sitting south, and the inherent energy of the south is fire. So you want to have red or green, which is wood, that fuels the fire, and that supports the inside of the home. Now, I just painted my door red a couple of days ago, and then I got this opportunity, so don't underestimate it. You want to decorate your tree with whatever you want to manifest. Whatever it is that you want to bring into your life. So this speaks for itself. It
Joy.
says joy.
Oh.
And it has a little bell
I
on
like
it.
that idea. I can get on board with this. So you decorate your tree with things you'd like to see in your life.
Yes.
Okay.
So we're going to put some joy.
That would be nice.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Welcome back. Now, could police forces in Northern Ireland recruit women on a 50-50 basis with men?
Stormont officials are aiming to address their severe underrepresentation.
GB News' Northern Ireland reporter Dougie Beattie is live in Belfast for us. Dougie, just explain what's going on here. What was the case in 2002? What happened?
Well, in 2002, we were coming out of the 1998 Good Friday Agreement, and the Police Service of Northern Ireland was then called the Royal Ulster Constabulary. Now, it was a very effective police force. It had been battling terrorism for decades. It was renowned around the world, and it had 8,500 full-time officers and 4,500 part-time officers. Now, unfortunately, there was over 300 of those officers murdered by various paramilitary forces, and Chris Patton had decided that in order to get buy-in from both sides of the community, that the RUC had to be reformed, basically done away with, and the Patton deal came out. Over 5,000 officers left the RUC under that Patton deal, but with them left massive experience, real know-how of policing, especially anti-terrorism policing. How much were they thought of? Well, many of them went on to advise and work for organisations such as the CIA. Some of them became chief constables in areas such as Yugoslavia and Basra. So that was the worth of the knowledge that they knew, but they were prepared to give that knowledge away in order to get buy-in from the Roman Catholic side of the community. And what happened at that point, there was 50-50 recruitment allowed, but not on gender but on religion. And they tried to get a lot of the Catholic side of the community to join the new police force, the PSNI. Now, there was some talk at that time about the legal difficulties in this, because it would be seen as discrimination, because of course the Protestant side of the community was much bigger at that stage. Now, to this day, there's only about 26% of the Roman Catholic side of the community that's born in Northern Ireland that are actually inside the PSNI. But what they wanted to do at that stage was also to make 50-50 recruitment on gender basis. So we've done away with experience, and we would rather bring in religion and then gender. That's what this document is really saying. And this document is only fascinating because it gives us an idea of what was happening politically in Northern Ireland under Tony Blair's government. Last week was the Irish the Irish government, they released their papers during this period, and it turned out that Tony Blair was trying to amend Gerry Adams' speech, who was then the head of Sinn Féin, the political wing of the IRA, even after they had been caught with documents on policemen while in government installment that collapsed that government. You can only imagine that Alistair Campbell must have been involved in that. Peter Mandelson definitely would have known about it, and John Reid, it turns out, knew 4 months in advance that they were gathering this information. But now we're looking to see that these new paperwork has came out saying that they believed that it wouldn't be viable to take on 50-50 on gender, although it would be on religion, and therefore it would discriminate against minority communities such as Asians, Chinese, whoever was settled in Northern Ireland at that time. And to what I am thinking at this stage of the game is the man that was the human rights lawyer that was advising the policing board in this period of time was none other than a QC by the name of Keir Starmer. So questions need to be asked of him at that stage. Was he aware of gender policies then?
Well, I don't know whether you'd get a straight answer from him if you asked him, because he's pretty good at not answering questions. Dougie Beattie, thank you very much. You joined us live in Belfast.
Now, Britain's newsroom is coming up at 9:30. Look who's here, Charlie Peters and Sophie Reaper in the studio with us. Guys, what have we got on the show?
Good morning.
Hello. Good morning. How you doing? Good morning.
Nice to see you in the breakfast chair.
I know. The first time in the breakfast chair, actually.
Oh, is it? Oh, well, you're doing a fabulous job.
Well, thank you.
As are you, Nana, we should add.
I was waiting for that.
Yes, of course.
There
we would never leave you out there.
I was going to say, how was your Christmas day? Because you were both in the hot seat.
We were in the hot seat, yeah. It was a good day, wasn't it?
Yeah.
We exchanged some gifts. We had some wonderful guests. We had dogs in the studio. What more could you ask for?
I'm now a Lord, right? As a consequence.
Yes, Lord Charlie Peters. I know it's my fault. I know.
Well, I'll have to watch that back and have a look at it, because I was doing other things.
Enjoying Christmas, I would imagine, yes. No.
So what have you got coming up in your show?
So we're going to start with this very interesting news coming from the channel. Obviously, it's a story we pretty much cover every single day, but it's such a crisis, it needs to be covered. We've just heard from Christopher Hope, haven't we, about the other 300 that crossed yesterday. There's some more news about the government expanding its strategy to deal with that problem. Will it work? More monitoring? What they actually really need is stopping. We'll be asking those questions, as we always do on this channel. And we're also going to be reflecting on the death of Jimmy Carter, the 39th President of the United States. Some more reaction from the US there, and his legacy and what it might mean for current American policy, particularly in the Middle East. So a bit to reflect on there.
I know you know that we're spending 15 million spying on these boats.
Exactly what I'm referring to.
That's the one.
Yeah,
monitoring the boats. What's the point of that?
Exactly. Yes. A lot of eyes.
That's not smashing the gangs now, is it? Monitoring the gangs.
Let's watch the gangs over there.
Well, you can't defeat your enemy if you don't understand it, but, you know, we understand
quite a lot now.
They're getting on a dinghy in France and they're coming to the UK from the safety of France. That's all we need to know.
We're also going to be looking at a really interesting story this morning about literacy in the UK. Apparently, children's enjoyment of reading is down almost 10% in 1 year. Now, obviously, reading at a young age is so important. That's children aged 8 to 18, so also includes young people. But it's so important in terms of children's development, in terms of socialisation. So the fact that it is down by such a huge amount, I think that's really shocking. So we're going to be taking a look at that as well.
Everybody's on their phones, aren't they?
No, they're on PS5.
That is
PlayStation 5.
I bet lots of children
DS.
got iPads and DSs for Christmas, but not many will have gotten books. So, very interesting.
I didn't buy my son one of those. He wanted a PS5. I bought him a laptop. He's 8 years old. He can open it and get his schoolwork on there.
So that's the best of both worlds, isn't it? He can do whatever he wants to do, but he can also get his schoolwork done.
I don't think he'll see it that way.
No, OK, maybe not. Maybe not.
I want to play a bit of Fortnite or whatever.
Yes.
Well, we look forward to your show. That's coming up in a couple of minutes' time.
Good. Now, Stephen and Ellie will be back from 6 a.m. tomorrow morning. But up next is Britain's Newsroom with Charlie and Sophie.
It's been a pleasure as ever. I shall see you on Friday. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Despite the morning rain, it'll be a nice, warm, cosy day ahead. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast. Low pressure systems brings an unsettled end to 2024 and a very unsettled start to the new year, as well as wind, rain and snow feature in the forecast. Rain and snow already across Scotland this morning, continuing through the day. Some local disruption here with Met Office warnings in force. The wind's also picking up across parts of the north, particularly northern England, with gusts of 50 to 60 miles an hour.